No, was not planned. There is an exit to your rear there, and an exit if you go round the screen behind me.
Should we put a little cap on that?
What?
Nothing. Or just have
Would you join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First of all, we should all recognize a huge event which occurred on Saturday which dwarfs all else, when Wales beat England and drove their noses into the ground of Cardiff Millennium Stadium. The biggest victory since 1904.
Hear, hear.
Having set the tone for the meeting, I'd now like to go to the public comment period, and I know there are a lot of gentlemen who want to speak about yellow lines.
Thank you, Anthony.
But I would like to have the lady from Project Hope speak first.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, how are you? My name is Jewel Lambert. I'm here with Project Hope. We're basically a counseling program, a free counseling program for those who are affected by Hurricane Sandy. So if you know anyone or if you were affected, you can help. We can help with resources to FEMA, Small Business Association loans, and free counseling if you were like emotionally affected. So I'm going to leave some brochures here. I have Spanish and English, so I would like for you guys to take a look at it. And if you need any assistance, just I have the information on the back. You can call. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak, but not about anything other than yellow lines? All right. In that case, I'm going to introduce the yellow line subject a little, because I have been bombarded with emails which have stopped all other productive work today, and about yellow lines. And these emails continually reiterate things that are just plain untrue. First of all, Pound Ridge puts yellow lines on exactly the same category of roads as we are discussing putting them in our town. I lunched with Gary Washour and was assured of that. Driving up 124 from Pound Ridge Hamlet, you will note that Trinity Pass, Donbrook Road, Kitchewan Road, Old Stone Hill Road, and Highview Road all have yellow lines as they exit from 124. Mary Beth Mercy tells me that Somers follows the same policy. Lee Roberts tells me that it is a safety issue, which is delegated to her head of DPW for the whole of Bedford, and that any roads of significance have yellow lines. Susan Carpenter told me that Newcastle follows the same policy. I was not able to contact Warren, our neighbor in North Salem, because he's been at a funeral all day, which was a fairly major event in North Salem. I believe, however, that they do not put yellow lines on town roads. That said, if you look at a map of North Salem, you will quickly realize that all the main communications are either state or county roads, which obviously do have yellow lines. Also, there are roads like Nash, which are mainly gravel, so obviously it doesn't work very well there. I believe we've referred in our discussions to Lewisboro as being a black hole. And I've been told that's untrue. But try driving from the Pound Ridge Historical Society in Pound Ridge Hamlet to Ridgefield and using a GPS. And 124 and the Pound Ridge half of Kitchewan are lined. Lewisboro has no lines on its half of Kitchewan or its portion of West Lane, though there are, of course, lines on State Road 123. Enter Ridgefield on West Lane, and the lines miraculously return. None of this means that Lewisboro must follow these towns. But please let's have this discussion based on plain false facts. Let's make a decision based on the one issue that really counts. That's public safety. In a town which has an ever-increasing proportion of seniors who may need help driving at night in order to participate in any form of social life. On a personal note, a lady I know very well who lives on Elmwood Road told me that she would lie down in the road to stop yellow lines, but that I should probably support them because her very many older friends all wanted them. All right, who is going to... Jim, I'm going to ask you first.
Thank you. I guess you want me up there?
I think so. Would you like to introduce yourself by name?
I'm Jim Henry.
Well, into the microphone.
That's all right.
They need it for the tape.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm Jim Henry. I live on Mead Street. I've been here for a little over 50 years, during which time, incidentally, I haven't seen any head-on or other accidents on Mead Street. I'm 82, so I'm very sympathetic to the elderly. I know a lot about the elderly. I'm one of them. And I am at the front end, apparently. I don't know how I got here, but I'm at the front end of what seems to be a very, very strong opposition to yellow lines. I'm not going to, at this stage of the game, get back and forth on your opening statement, Peter, about what the other towns do, but my experience in talking to the officers of the other towns is
Well, that's what I
somewhat,
was quoting. Their supervisors.
Somewhat, yes. And I can quote them also because several of them are personal friends. And I'm getting another story from those people. And I'm also driving around, as we have, in Bedford and Pound Ridge and North Salem, and getting a different scene. But let's leave that. Let's leave that. What I want to do, I think this evening, is tell you where we are in this citizens' uprising. Really, it's quite strenuous and very, very strong.
Jim, I'm going to ask you, unless you're speaking on behalf of everybody here, and I'm assuming that the rest of the people would like to speak, I'd like you to confine your comments to about 2-3 minutes. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of here tonight.
I think Jim is speaking on behalf of the
Well, fine. If he is, then that's fine. Then speak on.
And
sir.
may I speak uninterrupted,
No,
Peter?
I'm very good at interrupting,
Yeah.
but carry on.
I'm afraid that's the way the town meeting works, is it? I will limit this to 2 or 3 minutes. We introduced a petition against yellow lines on Saturday night. And as of this evening, we have overall 200 signed petitions in opposition to the yellow lines. Let me finish and then I'll answer your question, Peter. There incidentally is another petition that has been started. I believe the website is Action, and I recommend it to you because it has the comments of the people who have signed on in opposition to the yellow lines. we will tomorrow, we shall tomorrow, isn't it? We shall tomorrow contact the remainder of the Walkabuck community, because we started with just one meeting of 100 people in which, 80 people, in which 80 people signed the petition. We will get the whole community, then we will contact the remainder of the Lewisboro community later in the week. And failing that, then we will carry this on well into the end of the year, I guess, certainly through the campaign period. And we will, if we can't postpone, which is going to be my request, the yellow lines, we will bring litigation. Now, in that event, we will litigate, and we will all be in a very familiar, feisty atmosphere in Lewisboro, and I hope, very much hope, we can avoid that. And my request is that we set aside the yellow lines. Don't do away with them. Just set them aside and undertake a thoughtful committee, task force, whatever you want to call it, to examine the whole subject of our roads and the potential of our roads to maintain the rural character, the potential of our roads really to serve us in a broad way and not jeopardize the value of our property. And so I leave, or will leave this evening, with the hope that you, gentlemen, will agree to set aside the yellow lines for the time being and take up the task of putting together a thoughtful, competent committee to look at our whole rural road scene, which all too often is only addressed in terms of this pothole or that pothole or yellow lines, as opposed to the full potential of these roads as part of our environment. And I really urge you to do that, because it's going to be very costly to all of us if we got to get into still one more Lewisboro dogfight of some kind throughout the remainder of the year. Thank you. Peter, you had a question.
You somewhat answered the question about the petition. The first petition you speak of is Walkabuck, and the second petition is the campaign that's online. And the only thing I'd like to, I would ask anybody that's involved in the online petition, because I've been getting emails constantly during the day. It's up to 40 names or 50 names now. When I read the statement on there, and I read what a lot of people are writing, because I've been reading every single one, because I'm very interested in hearing and getting the opinion, it seems like people are taking that petition and thinking we're proposing, or what's been proposed by the highway superintendent and the board has supported, putting yellow lines throughout on every road. There's somebody talking about the lake community by Lake Katona having lines put, and the roads are too narrow, and we should be looking at putting parking there. And then another person's talking about the yellow lines on back roads. That was not what was proposed at all by the highway superintendent, and not what the board had discussed. The only roads that we were talking about striping are restriping roads that have been already striped, that have faded away, and the potential of striping additional feeder roads. And I believe that's what the supervisor was speaking to Pound Ridge and Bedford and all
Yes.
about, which are just feeder roads, which Mead Street does happen to be one that the highway superintendent did identify as a feeder road. But it is no other roads in town, other than a couple of other, I believe, Trinity, not Kitchewan, which goes in there to Pound Ridge, and a couple of other roads. That's all that's being proposed. So I think a lot of people are misconstruing that the online survey, not the survey of the Wacabuck Association, that it's been proposed that we're going to do all the striping throughout town. That's not the intent. That's not what we're looking to do. That's not a safety concern.
Well, let me say,
it's that small.
Peter, let me
Okay.
say, I think a basic problem we have here is that this whole thing, this issue, has started with a very limited amount of not the best communication. And so there's a lot of confusion and a lot of bad feeling out there. And that, to me, is my argument for, let's sit back, form a able group to look at this full range of issues, and then decide later whether we have and what we don't have in terms of yellow lines, what we do in terms of road improvement, how we revitalize our special character, et cetera.
I definitely understand what you're saying. Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity.
And also, just to be clear, we started in Wacabuck, but what we're talking about is Lewisboro. We're talking about Elmwood Road is a historic road of some significance. We're talking about here.
Yeah, Elmwood-
Which already has yellow lines on it.
Elmwood is striped.
That doesn't mean that they're in concrete.
Well, it does, in essence,
Oh, really?
because lawyers will sue us if there is an accident on Elmwood Road and we have not redone the yellow line.
I'm sorry, your lawyers will sue you?
No, lawyers will.
Are you the lawyer?
No.
I mean,
Oh.
for the town, what he's explaining is that once you take on a duty to stripe a road, to remove those stripes, you can fight major liability.
I see.
for the town if something were to happen.
Well, there are a lot of, in some important part, we're living by a dated rule book, the DOT rule book. And in 30 years of public life and advocacy, I've never really been terribly enthusiastic about accepting as the Bible the bureaucracy or regulation. And I don't expect you Republicans to do that either.
Is it my understanding, Jim, and I'll ask counsel while you're up, that I thought it was the highway superintendent's ultimate decision as far as that this isn't a town board vote and that it isn't a hearing type of situation or something like this. And I'm not throwing, Peter, we've said we've supported you on this. I'm not throwing you under the bus. But just when I hear about litigation and things like that, I just want to make sure that I'm not misconstruing how this is. In a situation with a elected highway superintendent or an appointed highway superintendent, it isn't a vote of the board to stop or to move forward. I mean, we could show support or show that we're not supportive, but,
The board's role is limited. The board's role is budgetary, like anything else I would wants to do.
okay. Just want to check on that, 'cause I was just curious.
Peter wants to
Well,
respond.
in clearing the air, I would be very interested in hearing from the highway department this evening, if that's possible, because there's some confusion on my part in terms of our conversation the other day and your conversation with Alan. Great. Okay,
Before
that
you,
was my 3 minutes.
before you go, if I could just speak to your idea of the commission and getting people together to talk about it, and just point out that, how long ago now, 9 months ago or something, we passed the Complete Streets policy.
I'm sorry, the what?
Complete
Something
Streets.
called the Complete Streets policy. And at the time, there was not a lot of note taken, but the central theme of that is to make sure that all your roads are accessible to all the different types of users, the pedestrians, the bikers, the young, the old. And that, in a sense, is also an opportunity and an invitation to talk about these matters, because before yellow lines came up, you still have a speed problem on Mead Street. When we had the big Chapel Road issue, obviously the paving was the central thing, but behind all that also was the speed issue. And I was hoping at the time that we would engage more people in starting to become more expert in what are the different traffic calming methods, what are different communities doing to address this problem. And I think that, again, this is probably an opportunity to go back to that and say that we do have this policy as a kind of a way to start a discussion about that. It doesn't dictate, do you have yellow lines here or you don't, but it starts to open that dialogue. So,
Well, the items, the agenda items that you mentioned, I would contemplate being within the subject of this committee on the roads.
that's why, in a sense, I'm very happy that this comes up,
Okay.
because I'd like people to
Right.
start thinking about it.
I agree with Dan. I think it's obvious this is a hot button issue. I think obvious that there needs to be more communication on it. What I would think would be, if we're going to discuss it further, I think we should have an appropriate session at a work session when it's not snowing out, we have some time, and I would request Peter to reach out, or Peter, to maybe the DOT, and have a DOT representative here, possibly get a road count, a car count, maybe put a counter on Mead Street, a counter on Kitchewan, some of the streets, to see what kind of volume's there. Because I took a look in the manual also, and whether it's dated or not, they do have some discussion on car counts and things like that, and we take a look at it, because it's obviously we don't get too much of a crowd anymore. It's actually nice to have some people in the audience, and it's sad that it has to be on something like this, but it's obviously an issue that's concerning your residents, so I think we need to take a look at that.
Very good.
I mean, my health department background is we like to be proactive, not reactive, preventive health. So when we talk about accidents and things like that, I don't want to see an accident happen and then react to that. So I'd like to get some more data, though, get some more study, and take a look at it.
That'd be a great start. Thanks, Peter.
Does somebody else wish to speak? Alan, could you introduce yourself?
Thanks for your time, and I'll be brief. My name is Alan Hershkowitz. I've lived in Wacabuck for the last 22 years, and for a brief period, I served on the town board, so thank you for your work. I know the effort involved in putting it together. I want to speak only specifically about Mead Street line. Sure.
The mic just records. So just
I'm here to speak only...
speak up, Alan.
I'm here to speak only about the Mead Street line. I walk Mead Street every week, at least every week, when I'm in town, maybe a couple times a week with my wife. And when I was on the town board, there were three sort of unwritten principles I thought we followed, which was respect Hamlet sensibilities, defer to the greatest degree possible to departmental heads, and also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I just want to briefly share my sentiments about how I see this issue as somebody who once sat in your seat. As Jim Henry pointed out, there was a Wacabuck Land Auto Council meeting this weekend where there's not a lot of unanimity in life, but there was unanimity expressed concern about yellow lines on Mead Street. Mead Street is, without a doubt, if not the single most walked road in Lewisboro, definitely in the top 5. It's, people bike on it, people walk on it of all ages. It's a multi-use, it's more of a country lane than it is a highway that comparable to 35 or 138. It will be getting the same stripes as those two roads, which really doesn't make sense. So I think actually, and the Wacabuck Landowners Council, our neighborhood association, which you all know, is very, very active, very active. I used to be on the board of that. My former wife was president of it. We take care of the signs. We have a beautification committee. We have a social committee. We have a tree committee. We have a security committee. Very active. It's very active. A lot of members, and people pay dues. And the association is opposed to it. We have the president of our association here, and of course, Jim Henry's was founded the association 30 years ago. So I would just say the sentiment in Wacabuck is there's no need for it, and it's also an aesthetic intrusion, because there's a certain aesthetic sensibility about Mead Street, which many would, to your point earlier, Pete, about, other towns, they're not Lewisboro, and I think we're the best. So let them have, fair enough. Second is departmental heads. I spoke with Pete. Actually, Pete and I ran, the first time he ran for election was on a ticket with me. We ran together. And I spoke with him today. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not going to repeat our conversation. We had a private conversation. But I don't believe he's driving this train based on the conversation that I had with the department head. that basically it's a town board decision. There is no New York State statute or regulation requiring the placement of double yellow lines on Mead Street. There is guidance that could be interpreted differently by the state, one way or the other, which is why I think input from the community is valued. And then the third point I'll make, and again, sorry for taking so much of your time, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've lived in Wacabuck for 22 years. Jim Henry's here. He's been there for 50 years. There's never been a fatality. There's never been a major accident. So to your point, Peter, about looking at data, we have, when was Mead Street paved? 30 years ago? 35 years ago? We've got 35 years of data saying, guess what? No one's gotten hurt on Mead Street. So it really is, there is no urgent, compelling, it's not like Queens Boulevard in New York City where somebody's getting killed every other day. You say, you know what, we really need to do something about Queens Boulevard. That's not happening on Mead Street. Mead Street is safe. Now speeding, I dealt with speeding when I was in your place too, years ago, and the town board before me dealt with speeding. Speeding, you know, what could you say? You got a lot of people who, you know, are speeding. And, you know, you have mothers who are speeding, you have people going to work who are speeding, you have teenagers who are speeding. I've sped. You know, sometimes you do it. It's, you know, it's a consciousness, it's a mindfulness. I don't think a yellow line is going to stop that. So in any event, I don't believe, actually, I think a yellow line is going to make things less safe on Mead Street. Because right now, when you walk, and often you're walking and people are walking towards you, there is no yellow line to squeeze a car in. And if you look, I just checked the New York State code today. Of course, you know, you can only cross the yellow line if you're going in or out of a driveway. So people might be more reluctant to. Right now at Mead Street, you could easily flow around a bicyclist or a stroller and not worry about crossing a double yellow line. If the double yellow line is there, I think people might hesitate. I think actually my own feeling, and again, this is not science. I'm a scientist. This is not science. Okay? You know, my own sentiment is I think a double yellow line would be less safe. But I also think it's inappropriate for that particular hamlet. So I just want, and the preponderance, you know, a body should move in the direction of its greatest weight. Overwhelmingly, Wacabuck is opposed to it. Now, I don't know about Elmwood Road. I know it's a beautiful road. I don't know about other roads, and I'm not here to talk about them because I don't live in those hamlets. But when you consider this, and, you know, I know you have to consider it, just ask you to remember that, you know, the hamlet's opposed to it. The highway department supervisor says it's not mandated. And it's been functioning pretty well for a long time as it is in a beautiful way. So again, I've talked too much and I apologize for that. Thank you for your work and appreciate you considering this issue.
Does somebody else want to speak? I really would appreciate.
Very quick.
We've got a public hearing at 8 o'clock.
My name's Jeff Happenew. I live on the logging road, which is right off of Mead Street. And I'm just going to reiterate the safety part of this whole thing. It is definitely a hindrance to put these lines down. I ride these roads almost every morning in the nice weather. I'm an avid cyclist. I ride on Mead Street. I have to go Mead Street to get to 35 or to get to 121. And I've been knocked off my bike a few times on 121 because when you have that line there, nobody gives you a wide berth. It's just not happening. Mead Street, you got the elderly that walk, you got young children that walk on that road. You put a double line down there, people tend to stay in that line. They don't want to go out. It's a fixed issue in their head that maybe it's illegal to do it. I mean, I go around if I have to, because if there's somebody that's biking there, I'll have to go around them. But I see a lot of people on 121 that don't give you any room, and I have no room, and I stay right on the shoulder. I give as much room as possible, and I have the same right as everybody else when I'm bike riding.
For the record, and since we're on it, the New York State now has the, they call it the 3-foot law, or, you know, it's so even with the yellow lane there, you are required to give birth, even if it means.
I guarantee you're going to limit the accessibility of people that want to walk on that road when you have a yellow line there. So I'm just telling you, there's going to be more of a safety issue.
That into the record.
And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, Alan. One, you got a question?
Yes, kid.
After,
You want to ask your question first?
I don't live on Main Street, and I don't live in Walker
know, could you publish the streets that you're thinking of putting them on? Because I don't have any idea.
Pete, you have the map, right?
Yeah, you have it up there.
I've got it, in fact.
Could you publish it somewhere, or could you?
It's this,
I thought last town meeting, actually, that was discussed, and you guys...
I think we wanted to put it
A
online.
couple meetings
I
ago, we were
agree.
going to try and put it on the website. What's the status of that?
I haven't put it on the website. And one of the reasons is that some of the roads on that we need to discuss.
Well, why don't you just
There
put
are
it
some
on
which are
Facebook?
clear yays, and there are very many more which are clear nays. But in the middle are some roads that, quite honestly, I think there needs to be a discussion, or Peter needs to decide really whether they need them or not.
That's a very fair question. It's a very fair question.
Just an outline of it, I don't.
I think that's
The
a very...
roads that are under consideration,
Yes.
I think the public has a right to absolutely unequivocally know.
And I believe we
Very
asked
fair.
for that at the last meeting, so we'll work on that. We'll discuss that after Alan's comments or after the public hearing potentially if we have to go into that. But that's a very fair and good question.
I will be very brief. My name is Alan Cole. I want to counter the impression that everybody is against centerline striping. I live on Todd Road, which is not striped, especially on the eastern end. It's curvy, they're hilly, and coming around those curves, I'm always afraid that someone's going to be cutting at me in the other. In fact, I have occasionally had to veer aside. And so I just wanted to say that I support centerline striping on those roads where it makes sense, and I thank you for your support of that initiative. Thank you.
Anybody else? This gentleman.
I'm only going to take 30 seconds of your time. My name is Grant Stinchfield. I live at 118 Mead Street. I'm a developer and builder, and I do a lot of developments. And when we look at a development, we look at if there's double yellow lines going down the street, it's a 20% deduction on what we can get for our properties when we do that. So we want you to look at what you're going to do to Mead Street when you put these lines down. There's going to be a deduction. And then you're going to have, excuse me, an uprising of people coming back looking for a reduction on their taxes for these properties. And I just want you to think about that. Thank you.
Is that, you get that number from somewhere, or is that just?
That's a base I could certainly give you information.
Yeah, if you have something
Yeah,
that
there's a lot of
supports that
realtors
assertion, I appreciate
that
seeing
have done research on it. And
Okay. You have any?
I can get it to you. I'll be
Yeah, why don't
happy
you
to
do
get
that?
it to you.
That'd be valuable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I look forward to seeing that map or list of the streets under consideration. Mike Sallow, I live on Howe Street, which is off of Gilbert Street, off of Main Street. I just want to talk about a short stretch of Gilbert Street as an example, because I can see it from where I live. Howe Street goes up a hill. I can see vehicles going down Main Street, kind of like from the Flower Triangle on Boutman and Main, down a little bit of ways. My position is that by narrowing the road with double solid lines, and it was one of the ones that was painted, so I guess there's a problem there. Yesterday I watched a 40-foot Federal Express tractor trailer go down Main Street. It did not fit between the right border and the double yellow line. The idea of crossing the double line when it's there is going to give people hesitation, as some of the other people said, for the walkers and runners, people with dogs, people with their kids, and a lot of nannies with strollers around here. So I think that it's an anti or against safety rule in certain streets like that. If it's a speed thing, put in speed bumps. They work all over the world. Put in speed bumps. I know there's a lot of rules about that, about straightaways and so forth. But painting the yellow lines, forgetting about what I consider wasting the money on the paint versus other things of road repair is more the better way to go. Thank you.
The answer to that, sir, may be that there should never have been a tractor trailer of that size on that road.
He was lost,
in the
but there
first
are
place.
very large, Peter, very large commercial vehicles.
I know,
that-
and
the
maybe
garbage
that's
trucks
the
are
problem, is
wide
what I'm
as the
saying.
tractor trailers. It was very obvious. I happened to be outside, and tractor trailers don't belong on Main Street, especially Federal Express, whatever he was. But moving vans come in and so forth.
But the cost of the yellow lines, $9,000?
On the amount that you're going to do.
Okay.
A year. That's my position. Thank you.
Was there something, Peter, regarding, I know you had discussed with the board about the width of the road, where if it was a certain width, it wouldn't be eligible?
The road has to be 20 feet. That's what they prohibit. Anything under 16 feet, you really can't do.
Right.
And if you did, you might get away with a single line. A lot of people are saying, how come Lewisboro, if you're thinking of doing this, are not going to go to one line? State of New York doesn't allow that,
Right.
just to be right up front.
We follow the manual, right? The manual on uniform traffic control markings?
I've been here over 55 years, I won't go beyond that with my age. But I tried this 7 years ago, and a good part of the town wanted to run me out on the rail. And I did it basically, as I've been in the police department, the fire department, everything else, it was a safety valve. We only did the controlled roads, and the reason the controlled roads are done is many reasons. They get you from the main road, from one state to another state to guide you. It's inevitable, it hasn't happened yet. A year or two from now, the federal government's going to make it a mandate, because they want federal, they give you federal money, they give you CHIPS money for your roads, and they want a little bit of pull on this. When I say a pull, when a car comes from 35 and it goes up Mountain Road and it's on its way to Ridgefield, that's what they want to control. They're not looking to go into Truesdale. They're not looking to go into Kitchewan. They're looking to make it safe.
Actually, I'm very concerned about that because we already accept the federal money. The CHIPS money is federal money.
Right, and they haven't put a restriction on that, but they could do
But
that.
the Highway Administration Traffic Control Manual, the mandatory one that we all have to follow, says we shall
We
mark the
shall,
roads.
under
And as
regulation,
those, right,
yes.
the lawyers in here know that shall doesn't give you an opportunity to say maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. You should. You have to.
Right, and the other thing was, when we did this 7 or 8 years ago, and we stopped doing it, it is the law.
Right.
Once you do it, you must maintain that.
Right.
We chose not to, due to a letter that was sent not to do it anymore from the board at that time. That's a decision.
And the manual's been updated in 2011 and
Yeah,
2009
they
as
all
well,
have been,
so.
and that's why Town Ridge didn't want it. Town Ridge wasn't looking in to violate anybody's rural feelings, but what has happened is, it's becoming very obvious now. When people are on the road, and if they do have an accident on major roads like that, you're asking for a problem. When the fog and everything else, it's just what they're doing. They're not looking to put white lines and yellow lines, they're looking to put the center line.
I just want to fact that there have been, just speaking on Mead Street, that there have been no accidents. And my understanding, and my conversation with you today, I think confirmed this, was that the state statute is guidance, not mandate.
No.
It is guidance, correct. But as
No,
far
you
as
have to,
telling
if
there
we
have
take,
been
if we
accidents,
take,
nothing.
if we take federal money,
Right.
which we do, it's not guidance, it's mandatory. It says shall. We take CHIPS money, we take it every year.
The feds don't mandate yellow lines.
Yes, they do.
No,
Manual, yes, they do. The manual for, the manual for traffic control devices does. I'll send it to you, Al. I'll send it to you. I'll send you the federal one, I'll send you the AASHTO one, I'll send you the state one. They all say it.
CHIPS money can be used for guidelines on any of that stuff, but it is regulated by
So
them, yes.
we have a remaining question now. Are the yellow lines a higher priority than the machinery you were applying for when you were trying to?
That's not apples to apples,
That's-
even in the
that's
money.
different.
Do we really have to get into this, that the federal government is mandated in terms of a town?
If we want the money, if you want to take the money every year.
In terms of community conversation, in terms of community conversation, about community character, do we have to say that the feds are mandating yellow lines?
If we don't want to take the money, I guess you don't have to do that, but we take the money every year.
Just to clarify that, and that's news to me, are you saying that within a couple of years' time, I think you referenced, there's going to be a federal mandate that yellow lines have to go on Mead Street?
There it is.
They are toying with
That's
it at this
nonsense.
moment.
It's
It's
not.
not. I
nonsense.
can't say
Okay.
it is, they're working on that because
Alan.
that's why your towns and villages are moving on that way.
All right.
Well, I don't think we have to dwell on it. It's
Okay.
common sense.
Roads, which we answer to a lot.
Via
That is
money,
on their agenda
Andrew.
this June to be discussed. And we're just saying it's going to be discussed. It could happen. We don't have to do it, but it's certainly due diligence. We should be looking to some of that for the future.
Well, we're just talking about the word shall, and now you're saying we don't have to do it. I just want to try and clarify.
Well,
If you take the federal money, you have to do what the federal tie-ins tell you.
It's not true.
It is true.
You're saying that if you don't put a yellow line down Mead Street, you're not gonna get the money anymore?
That's right.
I can't believe that, and 100% I cannot believe
It's just
something.
not going
You want to leave me your email? I'll send you the regulation.
It's just not going to happen. No one's going to come in and enforce. Who's going to enforce that? I mean, first of all, I don't think it exists on statute. Look, I don't want to take this out of control.
Okay.
Last time I was here 7 years ago.
I think there's a large crowd here tonight because everybody's under the impression that this is a town matter. And when we start talking about federal mandates, we're in a different arena altogether.
Well, let's look at it this way. these are town roads, but we do accept money, federal money, to do work on town roads. State roads get worked on by the state, county roads get worked on by the county, your local roads get worked on by your local municipalities, but you do get CHIPS money. It's a, when you talk about an unfunded mandate, it's almost an unfunded mandate when you look at how much it costs to pave the roads and do a thing, but you do get some money back on it. So that is a reality. Whether the rest of the discussion here, I'd have to hear a little bit more about it. I'm listening to Frank, I'm listening to what's going on, I'll listen to our council, but that's why I think it would be more useful of a discussion. We're not gonna be putting yellow lines down now in the snow. We could all take a deep breath and exhale, and why don't we look at getting a DOT rep here to come in and have a little bit more of a discussion to that fact, to see where we're at. Why don't we do a little road count? One of the things that I saw with a Shell was there's some road count numbers with how many cars. If you have a certain amount of traffic on a road, you're required to put, it looks like the way I read it, if you have a certain amount of traffic on a road, you're required to put the lines on, whether it's a feeder road or not. Now, I didn't get to the section about these feeder roads and things like that. I'm not well-versed in the DOT manual. That's why I'd like to hear a little bit more about it. Once again, safety, I feel, is of utmost important. If the road is not wide enough to support it, if it is wide enough to support it, the engineering has to be done on that to make sure that whatever we put down, we don't make a road less safe. But I definitely also would counteract the argument, just because an accident has never happened, is not an argument to me, because there are other accidents that have happened on other roads that are just like Meade Street, or smaller roads in Meade Street, bigger roads in Meade Street, within our town, other towns in the United States of America, because striping failed. You can look up the legal cases. So you're not going to base a decision just because an accident didn't happen. Just like I'm not going to make a public health decision why, okay, this restaurant's never had an outbreak, you can cook your food to whatever temperature you want. Doesn't work that way. There's rules and regulations for a reason. But I don't think we should rush to judgment. I think we've got to, there's obviously a lot of people here concerned about it. I think we can take a little bit more time to discuss it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to,
If you put the roads on the list. I don't care if you're thinking about them or you're not sure about them, just put them out. It's not written in stone. I just would like to see what you're thinking about doing, where, and why.
Well, I think the first step would be the roads. And the why is because what we discussed tonight and what the highway superintendent has discussed and we discussed as the board, these are feeder roads. Feeder roads, is that the word? Or
Main arterial roads, if you will, right? They connect the state roads and
no, we can put it on a town website. There's no reason why it shouldn't be there right now.
We'll look for it. Peter, one thing I'm missing is why, I assume that you have, according to the other people, a couple of years before we're going to take trouble. Is that right?
I don't know.
Shell is with the federal money, the state talks about in a couple of years they can do it.
But there are two categories here, are there not? Peter Rippinger, correct me if I'm wrong, the roads that have already been striped were mandated to restripe. So that has to be done. There's no dialogue relative to that. So this conversation is exclusive to the feeder roads, just so people are clear on it.
Yes, you're right.
We're talking about having the luxury of time. Are we not?
I know.
I'm not sure we have the luxury of time associated with the roads that need to be restriped.
Well, you're not. With the roads that are new, it sounds like you're going to put a various roads are
The feeder roads, yes.
You can't not strike the roads.
I
That's
think it's
not the
actually the other
question.
way around. If you stripe the road now, then you're gonna have to restripe it from then on. So I think that Peter, that Jim is right, it should take time.
Well, there are certain roads, look, we haven't restriped roads that have been striped. So those need to be striped, exactly, yes.
Don't stripe anything new, now you have to restripe it going on.
what's the
It's
municipal
kind of a
case?
weird piece of decision-making, though, where you...
Municipal discretion, what's the case? I forget. It begins with an M, right? Municipal discretion?
What we're saying is, once you strike, it's irrevocable, then you have to strike forever. So what we're saying is, don't make it...
Yeah, but it's that Buffalo case where the
I mean, Elmwood and
road markings Buffalo case.
Meade Street have got the distinction
I'll
of being main roads for the Revolutionary Army.
Right, but they want to strike that, we're not talking about...
Yes, but they are both main roads historically.
But they're strike.
No, Meade Street is not striped.
No, I'm not talking about
Peter, are you saying that because Elmwood has to be striped, then you gotta stripe Mead Street?
Kind of, yes. Otherwise, there's going to be riots on Elmwood.
All right. Let's have a civil discussion about this after we have a public hearing that's 20 minutes
we have to
behind
get this
schedule right now. I think do I need to make a motion to put this on a work session upcoming
No.
and have DOT?
There's
do you
no
wanna-
vote on this tonight.
No, there's no vote on this
So we
tonight,
can
so.
have, people can come next time and talk and say whatever they want.
But I think we,
I mean, from what you guys are saying, maybe.
There's no vote tonight.
There's
There's
no-
nothing to vote on
Just
tonight.
to say that, like, a month later, you just say we decided to do it.
Well, you can come at the next meeting. You can come to all the meetings if you want to while we work on it.
It was pretty clear before that this is not like a town board voting matter, is the way I heard it. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
no, you're right about that.
Right, so
You're
is
right
there a
about that.
decision made by
The highway superintendent
Good.
is looking to the board for backing. You know what I mean? We're trying to work as a group here. Let's be honest here. Exactly.
We have to do that.
Yeah.
If we don't do the ones that were done before, we're opening ourselves up to significant liability.
Yes.
I'm talking to Peter. Then that has some time element to it.
I have a very
Yeah.
practical
I mean, just one thing, Jim. You got to understand, as a town board, we have to listen to our highway superintendent. You elected a highway superintendent, and I'm not, Peter. We said we were going to support you on this, and I think you're getting support from us here. We want to look into it a little bit more, but you're getting support from us on that. But I think it has to be understood that it is true. At the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, if Peter wants to call the striping guys and have them come out tomorrow and stripe all the roads in town, he's got his own budget, he can do that. I mean, that's what it, and it's, he bases his decision on his expertise as the highway superintendent, talking to DOT, having people come in and doing things like that. That's my understanding. But what we're doing is, he came to the town board, wanted to discuss this with the town board, and get our involvement and our participation in it.
Which is appropriate.
Which is appropriate. He didn't take it upon himself to go out and do that.
That's not the way it put it to me the other day.
What happened to me, let me be very right up front with you. If it's my budget, I have the right to do it. I don't have the money in the budget to do it, okay? Now, I wanted to do this, we talked about it. A month or so ago, the town board brought it up, said, we would like to see these roads get done. I believe Kelly was here, Galushka was here. I was in awe at that time because I haven't had it before. Do I agree with it? Yes. But I never had the board be supportive of that, okay? And now it came up, they were supportive, and I said, yes, I would go along with it.
Wiggly, isn't it? Political.
I mean, why wouldn't I? I mean, that's what I was elected
That's pretty political,
to
isn't
do. I didn't have the money to do it. They came up with a suggestion. I agreed with it 100%, and that's where it came from. What was the suggestion?
Yeah, well, it's.
That we
Hey,
should look
strike the
into
roads.
doing the roads, lining the roads.
I have a very practical,
Guys,
practical
The
problem.
main feeder roads. No names for it, but the feeder roads. So look into all the roads.
We
Right.
are engaged in putting together a petition, and we are gathering very fast. As a matter of fact, it's almost credible.
Yeah, I know. So
A
probably
large
should stop
number
talking to him.
of people who are very angry and very agitated and very suspicious. I would like a firm answer from you folks as to what your ability is to comply with what I thought was a fairly reasonable request. Otherwise, we have to continue with this petition all the way across Lewisboro, and we will.
Jim, this is a public comment session. This is not the town board discussing yellow stripes.
Yes. When
I put this on,
I don't see why we...
this, you asked that you could speak tonight, and I've given you that courtesy. That does not mean that I can derail the meeting.
I don't think it's a courtesy for a citizen to speak, but
Well, all right.
He's getting enough.
all I'm asking is what is a reasonable time
We'll put it in a work session.
wait
Yes, I'm going to.
or to expect an answer?
Pete, you're not going to stripe the road till it gets warm, right?
They can't be touched until April.
Right. Okay.
May, actually, until the end of April, the beginning of May. And we just went out for bids, and the bids won't even be
Well,
released.
And we're gonna publish the feeder
How can you
roads.
go out for bids if you're not even sure what roads you're going to, excuse me? The town of Lewisboro bids every bid once a year. They must. It's mandatory by law. Anything that's purchased by this town, by me, must go out to bid.
It doesn't matter what road it is.
Utilize it or
So
don't.
couldn't you just take that list?
It's a unit rate, right?
Whatever you bid out, just put that on the list.
It doesn't matter what road it is.
It doesn't matter. I
It's just a bid for striping per mile. It doesn't
It
matter.
just means if we were going to, we have to be confirmed for the price. Well, we never use it.
No, it's just a price.
It's a unit
Per mile,
rate.
it's a unit
Price per
price.
mile.
Per mile,
Per
so it
mile.
doesn't-
It's
you-
standard.
Right.
You
All
did the
towns
same
do it every
thing,
year.
Al.
You did it,
Nothing to do with doing it.
yeah, no.
Gentlemen, we will proceed.
What I think would be constructive, Mr. Henry, what I think is constructive is I'm asking very simply to have this on a work session. I'm asking very simply if we can get a DOT representative in here, and if we have a work session, the Walkabuck Association could attend, anybody in town could attend and hear what's going on, and we do our decision-making process. I believe that the highway superintendent has done his research. We wouldn't do anything in a vacuum that's not the right width, not the right size, not the right traffic count. So let's get some more information and continue the discussion. I think that makes sense. I think asking for a little bit more time to discuss makes sense. On the same thing, I would ask council, how much time do we have as far as restriping the already striped roads? Because in that case, we can move forward with that, and if it takes a little bit more time to do, if we need to do any other roads, if we find that is a necessity, we move forward with that. But let's make sure we don't put ourselves in a position where we could be liable.
What the lakes are, what the lakes are to the three lakes council, what the lakes are to the three lake council. That's what means to lose the one. Let me just put it through that.
Say it again,
So
Allison.
what the lakes are to the three lakes council. That's what means to lose.
If I might just repeat,
Gentlemen, I'm closing the public hearing now, and I am moving, I'm closing the public comment period. I'm opening the public hearing.
Peter, one
On a
last
proposed-
comment, if I could. I just want to say that I know, but
Come
I
on,
just want
because there's going to be a response.
I want to reiterate that I would love to see this kind of energy on, as you said, the general topic, because we never had this kind of interest in the fact that you can't walk across the street in the central hamlet of Cross River without taking your life in your hands. I think that's a crime, and yet nobody's excited about that. I would love to see energy around some of these critical topics to make our town more livable and channel that energy into productive stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to open a public hearing on a proposed local law which would activate and restate Article 5L of the General Municipal Law, which empowers local New York State municipalities to offer energize PACE financing to local property owners.
And if you want, I'll kind of just generally restate what this is about, or?
All right.
I mean, just.
Is anybody here to talk about it?
Is anybody here who wants to discuss this?
I mean, just for the record, for the 22nd record, it's a program.
Okay.
It's a program to provide to owners of certain, generally sort of commercial properties or non-residential properties, the opportunity to participate in a special finance program to finance energy efficiency upgrades, whether it be, insulation, sealing, all those types of things. And it's a totally voluntary basis. But in order to be able to participate in that, we have to enact this law, which says we're going to take advantage of the New York State enabling law. So that's basically what this is about.
Anybody want to talk about it?
Further discussion? There being no further discussion, I move to close the public session.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would now like to move that we adopt that law, that proposed local law.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
I would also like the board's authority to execute the agreement with Energize and to sign an application for membership.
Second.
Discussion,
I think
Do we have to make a motion?
that has to
Authorize
happen
you to sign?
after the law comes back.
is that separate from the,
You send, my understanding is you send, do a letter, new authorization along with a copy. of
Yes, I do.
the filing receipt, but you should get authorization to sign tonight.
Yeah.
all right.
Right.
So,
We're authorizing to sign.
So, did you move to authorize yourself?
Yeah, I make a motion.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
That's right.
You strike that. I make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement as reviewed by council.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, as I understand it now, we've enacted the law. I have authority to execute the agreement and to sign the application for membership.
Right,
Yes.
and there was actually one more, I'm not sure if it needs a letter. Well,
That's the application
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
membership.
And they were suggesting that that's a separate thing. So I move that we authorize the supervisor to sign and submit the application for membership to the EIC.
All right, I second. Oh, I can't second. Peter is seconding. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
I think we've now got belts, suspenders, and everything else on that.
Okay.
All right. I have a letter of commendation from Tom Pasamas of the schools for...
Somas.
Pasamas?
Somas.
I think the P is silent.
Yeah.
From David Alfano and Andrew Llewellyn, in that they did a superb job of apprehending a burglar at John Jay High School on March the 2nd, 2013. This was a burglary that had been happening on a persistent and continuing basis, and they took the necessary steps to apprehend the gentleman.
That's great.
I think that is a reflection on the enthusiasm of some youthful additions to our police force.
Fantastic.
And useful and well-trained.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I would like to thank Officer Anthony Lobalbo for his service to the town of Lewisboro, and particularly for his vigilance on our town roads. And I would like to make a motion to accept his retirement after 14 years of service to the town of Lewisboro.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion? Oh, wait a second. Discussion? I have removed the police department report from the consent agenda because it's wrong. How about that?
Okay.
What was the meeting I missed? Did I miss the 25th when I was sick?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, you can't do that either. All right,
So-
I move we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All discussion? All in favor?
I'm recusing myself from the 25th, and aye for building planning.
Yeah. We can actually get by without
Yep.
your vote on that.
Yeah.
Okay, next, and I'm sorry, gentlemen. You have been patient beyond belief, but I'd like to call on Seal Coating to make their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you, audience, for being here. My name is Dan Patnode, and I'm a licensed professional engineer with a company called Seal Coating, Inc. We're headquartered in out near Boston. I live on the South Shore of Boston. And I'm here to talk tonight about roads as well, but I promise not to talk about centerline stripes. Specifically, I'm here to talk about your pavements. We're here at Peter, your highway superintendent's invitation. We know you have a heck of a challenge on your hands in managing those pavements. And really, my goal tonight in this presentation is to share a little bit of knowledge that I've gained in this business for the last 20 years. I was a highway superintendent myself in New York State, over in the town of Wallkill in Orange County from 1992 to 2002. Worked for the next 9 years for a company called New York Bituminous over in Chester, New York. And just in the last year, I've moved my family out to the Boston area. So just here to share information tonight, and hopefully it helps you guys take on this awful challenge you have as a community in getting your roads in the condition that I think you probably want them to be in. So that's why I call this presentation from a local practitioner's perspective, because I was a local highway official. Normally it takes me about 45 minutes to go through it. I'm not going to pain you with that tonight. I promise to cut it in half, but I hope that you find some valuable takeaway here this evening. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about pavement preservation, pavement maintenance. We're going to talk about what the definition of pavement preservation is, why that's important to your community and your taxpayers here in the community. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you practice pavement preservation, and lastly, how you sell it to your community so that you have buy-in from everybody that's important here to you. Real quickly, a quick and dirty definition of what is pavement preservation. It's a planned system to treat your pavements. We want to maximize their useful life. That's the business we're in, is keeping these roads together and operating for our taxpayers, and we want to do that just as cost effectively as we can. We understand that's your big challenge. So I like to break this definition down into some more bite-sized pieces, and the first part that I'd like to talk about, bolded up there, is it's a planned system. It's proactive and progressive. This gentleman over here, Mr. DeLuca, did I pronounce that? DeLucia, I'm sorry. I heard you mention earlier you're somehow involved in the health department. You like to be proactive, not reactive. That's exactly what pavement preservation is. We're looking out ahead 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, looking at forward-looking plans. We're not reacting to the potholes that occurred last winter. These plans can be very, very complex when you have hundreds of miles, very sophisticated computer programs, or they can be very simple. I know people that do them with spreadsheets. And the one thing that I find that's common amongst them is the managers have strong control over their networks as opposed to their networks controlling them. The next piece of the definition I'd like to share is it's about treating pavements. We want to maximize useful life. That's the business you're in, is getting more and more life out of your roads. So there's a heavy, heavy emphasis on preventive maintenance. Just like you do preventive maintenance around your house, it's important to do preventive maintenance on your highways. Early intervention's critical. We can't let the horse out of the barn. You don't go out and do maintenance after something's fallen apart, and that's the hard part. We'll get into more of that later. And lastly, the thing that pavement preservationists like to say, it's all about keeping good roads in good condition. And and the last piece of this is about being cost effective. I know this community, I just spent a couple hours this afternoon driving around. Seems to be you don't have a lot of ratables, not a big business tax base, so most of your tax dollars, I'm guessing, are coming from the homeowner. That's a pretty tough way to fund local government. I totally get it. My town of Wallkill over in Orange County was blessed with a lot of ratables. We had a big retail tax base as well as some manufacturing. So a much easier job for me to be a pavement manager over here than I think it is for you guys in this community. But wherever you are, you got to do it just as cost effectively as you can. So what I like to think in the first takeaway, there's 3 takeaways tonight. The first of this is this concept of equivalent annual cost. The second will be about remaining service life. And the third will be about how it's a mistake to spend a majority of your budget on the worst roads in your community. So let's take this first takeaway. What I found in my 20 years in this business, 10 in the public sector and the last 10 in the private sector, the best of the pavement managers focus on this concept of equivalent annual costs. And let's dig into that one just a little bit here first. And before I do, the backbone of all this pavement management stuff is this curve right here. This is called the asphalt deterioration curve. Every one of your roads in your community is somewhere on this red curve. Basically, the vertical axis is the pavement condition, starting at excellent when the roads are new, down to failed when they haven't been taken care of and they're aged, and the horizontal axis is time. At each point along that red curve over time, there's what we call a right treatment to do at that point in time. So you can see when a road's fairly new, the right treatment, typically the first right treatment to do is label number 1, crack sealing up there. Just like your driveway at home, the minute those cracks start to open up and allow water to intrude, you want to seal them up. The next step, if it's analogous again to your driveway at home, is to do a seal coat, just like we all do with our asphalt driveways at home. If we miss that intervention opportunity to do maintenance, then we get down into here, a hot mix asphalt overlay. If you didn't maintain your driveway, you might have to repave it. If we miss that intervention opportunity, then we might have to do a full depth reconstruction. If we built our house, put a driveway in, didn't do any maintenance, after 15, 20, 25 years, we might have to replace it. Very expensive proposition. Same analogies apply right out there to every single road in your community. So that's the backbone of pavement management. I call it an unfortunate fact of life because no matter how good a job we do building a road, day one it starts down this downward curve. So I mentioned earlier that the first takeaway concept that I hope that you guys get some value out of this presentation tonight is this one of equivalent annual cost. So I'd mentioned that there's a right treatment and a right time to do those treatments on every pavement segment. This is that list of treatments starting at the top of the curve. And again, the top of the curve is more your maintenance-oriented items. Bottom of the curve is your more reconstruction-related items. So starting at the top of the curve, we have crack sealing and surface treatments on a per square yard basis, and that's what I'd like you to think about as opposed to a per mile basis. Road widths vary. See, I saw driving around your community today, you have some very narrow roads, much narrower than I expected to see. The one, Kitchewan, I drove on that, and there was somebody coming.
Kitchewan Road?
Yeah.
And you're here?
And there should have been a yellow line on that to keep the guy on the other side. No, just kidding. But I mean, a tough road. Very narrow. I don't know, the pavement width might have been 16 feet. We didn't get out and measure, but I'm guessing much narrower than I see most places. So I don't like to talk about per mile cost. That's not valid. And quite frankly, I don't see you widening a road like that out. You got ledges on both sides and stone walls. You got what you got. Poor drainage. We talked specifically what I would do if I were in Peter's shoes to that road, but I don't want to get bogged down in individual roads. I want to talk about concepts here tonight. So on a per square yard basis, those treatments starting at the top of the curve, crack sealing, the most cost-effective treatment in my mind you can do, only about 40 cents a square yard for a typical road. Your surface treatments, like a chip seal here, about $2 a square yard. Double surface treatments might go up to $4 a square yard. Once you miss that maintenance type opportunity, you can see costs starting to rise pretty rapidly. You can get into $8, $10 a square yard when you start paving roads. Then if you got to get into reconstructing or rehabilitating, you can see you can get into that $18 to $26 per square yard range. If all the roads were 12 feet wide per that footnote down in the lower left there, that's how much they'd be per lane mile, 2 lanes per road. So you can basically, for a 24-foot wide road, you could double these per lane mile costs. And those are fairly average costs throughout the Northeast market. Sir?
Well, it looks like the column we really want to look at is the far right.
Yes,
I mean, that's
absolutely. You're way ahead. I'll pick up the pace. Clearly, you don't need me yakking as much. You want to get right to the bottom line. That's exactly the punch line here, because we can all debate how much stuff costs and what's the right treatment to do on a certain road out there. We can also debate how long we think each one will last. My history in the industry, tells me the blacktop doesn't last as long as it used to. When I got started 20 years ago in the business, the asphalt was better, and there's lots of technical reasons for why it's not as good today. You think we'd be getting smarter and stuff would be getting better. Asphalt, the quality is going downhill because the refineries have found ways to take out the valuable products and put them into more expensive products. So what's left in the asphalt's a lesser quality material. That's why if you talk to old-timer pavers who've been paving 30, 40 years, to a man or a woman, they'll all tell you the blacktop's not as good today as it used to be. So what we used to go out and pave a road and expect to get 20 years out of it maybe, nobody's getting 20 years. We're not even getting 15 years. I think 20 years ago when I was a highway superintendent, I think I could get 15 years out of an overlay. I don't see many 15-year overlays today. In fact, you can see on our chart here, we got 10 years in on this one, 11 on this one. So that's our estimated service life. What I encourage every town to do when I give this presentation, make your own list of what treatments are acceptable in your community, figure out what your costs are in your community, estimate what you and your neighbors see as a service life for each of those treatments, and then get to the punchline, which this gentleman over here said, the most important column of numbers is this equivalent annual cost number. And you look at what's happening to those, from 40, 50, 60 cents per square yard per year up to $1 to $1.30. Now I want to take you through a couple examples to show you why that's so important. And this next slide is really just so shown graphically, and you can just see how quickly the numbers start to grow. These are equivalent annual costs, not absolute costs. So you want to manage your network. Big takeaway I want you to all remember. You want to manage your network, maximizing the utilization of treatments that have the lower equivalent annual costs. And let's take an example and show why that's important. Your town has about 84 centerline miles of paved roads. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, 9612 was dirt, yeah, 84.
So 84 paved centerline miles. We think the average width is 22 feet. That means you have 1,000,001 roughly square yards of pavement you're managing. That's a big number. 1.1 million square yards. So if our pavement management strategy was to be what we call a worst first manager, and let me explain just quickly what that is. That's where you're spending the majority of your budget each year paving the worst roads. And isn't that human nature? You're elected officials. When people call and squawk, hey, my road's terrible, what's your reaction? You want to go out and fix the guy's road. But if you spend the majority of your roads in what we call those worst first roads, let's say you average $1.15 per square yard per year as your equivalent annual cost. So you're doing stuff out here. You're doing mill and paving, cold in place recycling with 3 inches of hot mix, or full depth reclamation with 4 inches of hot mix. You can be up in that $1.15 per square yard per year equivalent annual cost. So with 1.1 million square yards of pavement, if you were averaging that, you'd need a budget for pavement management of $1,250,000 roughly. I don't think you're spending anywhere near that from what I understand.
No. A year?
Move on.
And I don't want to make light of this. Is really serious stuff. I really want you guys, and I'm not being critical. I just want you to understand the numbers. If, on the other hand, say all the roads were in good shape and you were able to just keep good roads good, so follow a good maintenance strategy, say maybe you could maintain those roads for an average of 60 cents per square yard per year. So you're doing this kind of stuff. You're doing some slurry seals, some chip seals, some cape seals. So thin maintenance treatments, not blacktop paving, because that stuff's up in the $1 per square yard per year range. That means you need a budget of $650,000, which is even more. Go ahead, sir.
So if you do kind of a hybrid mix, because nobody's going to not do any of the bad roads, will you eventually push the needle, because you'll be,
you will,
in other words,
yeah.
your overall average state of your roads is going to
somewhere in between
faster than if you did, say, all the bad roads.
Yep.
You know, so there's probably some ideal blend.
In every community is different. You know, people ask me that. Well, what's the right blend of maintenance and repairs, rehabs and reconstruct? The answer is different for every community. And as we get along here, one of my other recommendations is you get a pavement management system in place. We've talked to Peter today. Cornell has a very cost-effective program. That's one option. But you go through that and they go out and collect all the data. Where are all our roads today? What's it cost if we fix them all today? And then you can run a bunch of what-if scenarios. If we spend $700 grand a year, what's the best way to spend it?
So this here is saying, though, that you're spending, let's say you've got the roads in certain shape, like you're saying here, you're able to do the 60 cents average, 651 a year. That's doing all 84 miles every year. You're spending 600,000, or
no, that's saying that your average cost of treatments is 60 cents per square yard per year. So most of those maintenance treatments are good for, say, 6, 7, 8 years. Say 7 is an average, you get 84. So you'd be doing 12 miles a year of those low-cost maintenance treatments. If every road was pretty good in your town, you could do 12 miles a year, say chip sealing, microsurfacing, slurry seals, and just keep them good doing that. You never have to spend big money. But you need about that budget, maybe 500, you know, and again, I don't know the details of the exact condition of all your roads, but it's in that ballpark. You know, if your roads were all in decent shape, I'd say the right budget for Lewisboro is about $500,000 per year for pavement management to keep everything good. And I don't think you've been spending that.
No.
And what happens if you take a year or 2, 3 years and don't spend anything, all those roads start to slide down that curve, and the numbers don't grow in a linear fashion, they grow in almost an exponential fashion. So that's why this is such a big issue. The longer you wait to jump in and do something, the more expensive it gets. And this is, just so you don't think this is my chart, this whole equivalent annual cost concept. This is the New Hampshire DOT's chart. It's an agency that I do a lot of work with. And you can see the numbers are obviously different. Their cost per square yard of treatments, because they're letting bigger jobs, you know, these might be $2, $3, $4, and $5 million jobs, the cost per square yard go down. Their labor rates in New Hampshire are less than labor rates here. Their service lives are a little less because they've got more plowing going on, higher traffic volumes on state roads. But when you get over into this column of numbers that matter, as the gentleman over here said, about the same. You know, your surface treatments are in that 50, 60, 70 cents per square yard per year range. And if you get into reconstructs and rehabs, $1 to $1.50. So that's, you know, the numbers are kind of in line with ours. This is more for a state network. So there's our definition. It's a planned system. We want to treat roads and we want to maximize their life for as little money as possible. So let's talk about the benefits. There's certainly financial benefits, there's environmental benefits, and user satisfaction, the people that pay taxes and drive your roads every day. We're looking to extend earlier investments. I think the most valuable asset in your community is probably your roads. If you sat down and tallied up all of your assets and what they're worth, I don't think there's any doubt that your 96 miles of road would be your most valuable asset. And it's incumbent, I think, on the governing board to preserve earlier investments and extend those lives. I found in my community, we were able to raise our pavement condition in Wallkill from a 76 on a scale of 100 to an 83. When we did that, what we found in our annual budgeting process is that we cut everything up to a pretty good level. We didn't have those roads falling apart every winter on us that are just terrible surprises. You know, when they go apart, it's always a big bill to fix them. And I think the big thing here is that we start thinking long term. These roads are all going to be out here after every one of us in this room is gone and there's a new town board here. We can't think election to election. We can't think until this guy retires, that guy retires. We need to think long term, and that's what this slide is. It's a 50-year slide looking at just 1 square yard of pavement. And the blue line is what I'll call the preservation strategy, the blue sawtooth curve. And you can see that that's being, over 50 years, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 treatments occurring over 50 years. And there they are down in that left-hand corner. It's being crack sealed 4 different times. It's getting microsurfaced a couple of times. It's getting a cape seal a couple of different times. And at year 25, right in the middle here, it's getting milled out and repaved. The total cost of all those 9 interventions over 50 years, today's dollars, not any kind of fancy financial analysis, just today's dollars, is about 31 bucks a square yard. If, on the other hand, we don't do that maintenance and we do, say, a rehabilitative treatment like cold in place recycling with, full depth reclamation with 4 inches of hot mix, that costs about 20 bucks a square yard every time you do it. And you can do it maybe in 15-year cycles, so that road only sees 3 treatments over 50 years, but you spend almost twice as much money. That's the difference between preventive maintenance, preservation, and just doing work and letting the roads go down that long curve and then coming in and fixing them. Environmental, I'm going to rush through this. It's more and more of a hot button issue. 20 years ago when I got involved, nobody really talked about greenhouse gas emissions, energy consumption. More and more communities are pledging to reduce their environmental impact. Maintenance is certainly much less harmful to the environment in all of these areas. Petroleum and aggregate that goes into the black stuff that goes in under the roads, certainly less if you're doing maintenance as opposed to reconstruction. Same thing with energy, same thing on greenhouse gases. Studies have been done that illustrate that. I know everybody's tired and wants to get out of here, so I won't bore you with those details. And user satisfaction. We all report to a tax-paying public here. As I said, by practicing preservation in my community, I was able to get the roads from a 76 to an 83 over a 10-year period, and it was a noticeable difference. We used to have our town board meetings were on TV, so I had to sit up there at a side table. Town board was at the head table, I was at the side table.
You're on TV now.
Oh, that's not good. And my first few years, it used to be painful to me to go to those meetings every 2 weeks because inevitably somebody would stand up at public comment and complain about a bad road they lived on. By implementing that pavement management system, by the end of my 10-year tenure there, very, very inoften was it that somebody got up and complained about roads. So it doesn't sound earth-shattering to go from a 76 to an 83, but it was a noticeably better network. By doing that, we had less vehicular damage and construction delays. Maintenance work does not typically interrupt traffic. And the professional image of myself, my department, my board was all enhanced. My town supervisor was Howard Mills. If anybody recalls that name, he ran against Chuck Schumer a few years ago for U.S. Senate. He loved our pavement management system, you know, state of the town address every year. He'd get up and rave about it. It's good. It's good government. And just maybe you'll reach the ultimate goal, the happy taxpayers.
So a lot of stripes on that
Oh,
road,
geez.
right?
How did I get stripes?
Yellow on one side.
Where's that road? Yellow, white?
That is one side of a dual carriageway.
It's a military reservation.
That's
They can do whatever they want.
exactly, if you look at the sawmill, it's exactly like that.
Is that right? So 2 keys to success, and I'll try to hurry it up. I know you're all tired and want to get out of here, but I think one is you got to fill up your toolbox with treatments, and 2, you need to commit to a pavement management system, which is really, I think, where the town of Lewisboro is right now. So the toolbox is all about it. This is a couple of treatments that my company does. This is a crack sealing crew. This is a microsurfacing crew. When I see the best of the best all up and down the East Coast, and I work from Florida to Maine, most of those pavement managers are using all of these treatments right here. You know, they do a little bit of all of these, the right treatment to the right road at the right time. There's very few successful pavement managers I see using just 1 or 2 treatments. Once you get all those tools figured out that are appropriate for your community, the best way to figure out where to use them is with this pavement management system, because that's what allows you to maximize their value. And there's a few different ways to attack a pavement management system, and I've done, this RSMS is the program that comes out of Cornell, the local roads program, and Peter and I talked about this today. They have a very low cost, I think they charge you $6 for the software, public domain, and they'll train an intern up there to come and spend the summer with you collecting the data, distress data, to get you up and running with a program. Very, very inexpensive way to do it. I did that in 1993. I ran it side by side with a private sector software program called Road Manager. At the end of that summer, when we ran the 2 softwares side by side, I preferred the private sector software. I thought it was more user-friendly and gave me better reports to manage my network with. But I know a lot of people that are successful in using RSMS, so it's certainly a very cost-effective way to attack this thing. And then one that wouldn't be applicable here is custom design spreadsheets. Rockland County, Skip Vizzetti and Andy Connors manage their pavements for all of Rockland County with spreadsheets that Andy Connors designed, and they're very effective at doing that. The other way to do it is something that I think you may want to consider is a consultant route, because, and I talked about this with Peter and Peter both today, Peter the town supervisor and Peter the highway superintendent. The upside to the RSMS solution with a Cornell intern is for a very little amount of money, you're going to have a snapshot of where each road segment in your community is in terms of its rating and distresses. The downside is once you have that data, then what do you do with it? And really, the answer to that question is you've got to do some pretty serious financial analysis to determine where are we headed as a community with our roads. How much do we want to budget? What are we comfortable with committing to? And everything, of course, is resource constrained. I know communities that have done bond issues and then said, okay, what's the debt service? If we got to borrow, pick a number, $5 million to fix a bunch of roads, and we're going to borrow that over a 10-year period, then our debt service is probably going to be $550 a year. Well, if we commit $550 a year to debt service, how much does that leave us to do maintenance? So there's some pretty sophisticated financial analysis that I think you're going to want to consider. The intern from Cornell, I'm guessing, is not going to be able to do that for you. So if you commit to that path, and you got to say, when he's done or she's done, how are we going to take it to the next step? Whereas if you go with a consultant route, I've worked with all 3 of these guys, all very competent. they, at the end of the day, will be able to do that, and that's what they do for clients all over the country, is they do those sophisticated financial analyses. And I talked to Peter, the supervisor today, says you have what do you have, a financial guy in-house, what is it, your fiscal manager?
Controller.
Well, he's probably a numbers guru, but he probably doesn't know much about roads, so if you could complement him with a road expert, you might be able to do it in-house, I don't know. But if you were to go this consultant route, typically $200 to $250 per centerline mile to get a program up and running. That's data collection, reports, come in and present to you. For your 84, what do we say, 84 paved miles? Not a huge amount of money. And I know everything's a huge amount of money nowadays, but something for you guys to think about, whether you want to go the Cornell route or the consultant route.
That's to get a program up and running, so that's the initial.
That's the initial.
Setup, is there then supposed to, would you use them annually and then do a lesser thing, or?
Everybody's got, whether you do the Cornell intern to set you up with RSMS or a consultant, what that initial setup is they're going to go out and look at every road segment and carefully detail the severity and extent of each distress. I think there's 19 of them they evaluate. Have an
your baseline on everything.
Baseline. So that road is a PCI 64 today. They get everything on that curve, if you will, every road segment, and they hand it to you. And then each one of those pieces of software can run reports. Now, what you'll have to commit to going forward is keeping that data fresh, because that data is just the day they collect it. That's where the road is. Most people recommend that you freshen the data on about a 3-year cycle. What I did in my town is I did a third of the road every year, so I wasn't spending a lot of money in any given year. In my case, I had 165 total miles, 150 was paved, so I do about 50 miles of data collection every year, and that's not that $200 per mile. It might be $100 or something for the data. But that's an investment that I would recommend you make. I know too many people that got the RSMS up and running, and I can go into their offices in a lot of places here in New York State, and there's a beautiful 3-ring binder up on the shelf from 6 years ago. Doesn't do you, 6-year-old data. These roads, might as well start over. You do it. You got to keep the data fresh.
Well, highway directors, turn over as well, so this would
exactly.
give you a level of
continuity. There's some towns. Fairfield uses VHB, right? All 3 of these guys are prevalent in the area. 2 to 250 a centerline mile. If I were in your shoes, I think that's the path I would take. What's 84 times? What is it? For less than $20,000 probably? Is that what, doing it quickly in my head?
A little bit more.
Yeah, I think if I were in your shoes, that's cheap money. It sounds like a lot. Everything's a lot of money nowadays. That's cheap money to me. So you got all these new tools and you got a pavement management system. Let's get started, right? Well, the last thing I want to share with you is important to sell the pavement preservation plan. Everybody needs to know why you're doing it. And the reason for that is right here. If you go out and start spending money keeping good roads good, which I said is a cost-effective approach here, you might hear this. Somebody that lives on a street that's falling apart and you're out working on a street that's in pretty good condition, they're going to think you don't have a clue. So you need to sell it. You can see how thorny, I don't need to tell you, people get thorny when they think they're being stepped on and you don't know what you're doing. You want to make sure you've communicated your goals. And you got to communicate them to your entire staff so everybody that works for the town knows why. Your governing council here needs to understand it, and the public needs to know why you're approaching it the way you're approaching it. And one tool that I found that's a great tool for communicating, and it's the last concept I want to share with you tonight, is this tool right here. This was produced by the Federal Highway Administration and the National Center for Pavement Preservation, which is out of Michigan State University.
You have an extra one.
And basically, you can read it at your leisure, but it's based on this remaining service life concept. Because when you think about it, what's your job as it relates to these roads? Every year, you're losing a year of service life on every road out there. Your job with your annual highway program is to put more service life back into the roads. You're constantly trying to feed more life back into the network. So it's based on this remaining service life concept. Every segment out there of your 84 miles has some remaining service life. Typically, most people look at a new road or a newly rebuilt road as having a 20 to 25 year remaining service life. And if a road's down at the point where people in your community feel it's impassable and unacceptable, then that's down near a 0 remaining service life. So taking an example here, if you've got 300 lane miles of pavements in your network and you don't do anything, you got a 0 pavement management budget in a given year, then that network's going to lose 300 lane mile years. And that's kind of the difficult concept to understand here. Lane mile years, you're going to lose that many lane mile years of service life in your network. So what we want to do is the board, you need to develop annual work plans, in my opinion, that achieves your goals as a community. And I would say a good starting point so that you don't go any backwards any further than you already are would be to develop a work plan that puts, in your case, 84 mile years of life back into the network every year. Now let me take you through a couple of examples. Rob, did you pass out those 2 examples? Because these numbers are going to be a little hard to see on the screen. So what I'd like to do to wrap up here, and I'm sorry for being so long-winded, give me another 5 minutes, is take you through a pair of examples, both of which are for the same network of roads, which is 150 centerline miles of road. They both have a budget, both of these communities, of $1.3 million, and they both have 6 miles of terrible roads. One way to attack that is the worst first. So people call and complain about the rad roads, and that's where you spend your budget, and the other is to do a more progressive pavement management approach. So the first example is the one labeled Pothole City, New York at the top. It's got the management strategy. It's worst first in red letters up there in the upper left-hand corner. So you can see they've got 300 lane miles in their network, and their budget's $1.3 million up there in the upper right. 3 different buckets of project types. You got reconstruction projects in that first box on top. You got rehab projects in the middle box. And then in the third box, you have preservation projects. This is a worst first town, so they're spending their budget on all the bad roads. We said they had 6 centerline miles, 12 lane miles of bad roads. That's how they spent their money, fixing those bad roads. The lane mile year calculation is the design life of each of those treatments times the lane miles performed. That simple math is the lane mile years of new life put into the network with each of those projects. The costs I shared with you earlier, so you can see very expensive projects. When you tally up the summation of these projects in the lower left, you can see that that program achieved 164 lane mile years of new service life for a budget of $1.3 million. But a break-even year in that community is 300 lane mile years. That's in order to maintain the status quo and not go backwards, you got to put 300 lane mile years of new life in. We didn't come anywhere near that. So what's the net of this program? Well, the good news is all 12 lane miles of the bad roads got fixed. So we'll have a lot of ribbon cuttings. Everybody will feel good that the roads people called to complain about were fixed. That's the good news. The bad news is that we only touched 4% of the network. So only 12 lane miles of 300. Not very good. The average equivalent annual cost of the treatments used was about $1.16 per square yard per year. That was on the high end of that range of the example we went through earlier. Not something you can afford. And the program yielded a net deficit of 136 lane mile years. So the network took a serious step backwards. You can get away with that 1 year, 2 years, but if you sustain that over time, what do you think is going to happen to the condition of that network? It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. That's what you don't want to have happen. So let's look real quickly at the alternative, which would be a more proactive preservation approach. 300 centerline miles, lane miles, same budget, but instead of fixing all the bad roads, they only fix half the bad roads. 2 lane miles of reconstruction, 4 lane miles of rehabilitation, and look at all this preservation work, maintenance work, 62 lane miles of that. When you do all the math, the life of the treatment times the miles done, and tally it all up here in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that that program yielded a total of 308 lane mile years of new life into the network for that same $1.3 million budget. So we didn't gain a big surplus of new life in the network, but at least we just about broke even. And what was the big change? Instead of fixing all 12 lane miles of the bad roads, we only fixed half of them. We'll get to the other half. It's just if we keep spending all of our money on the worst roads and none maintaining the roads that are good, it's a loser's game. It's like digging a hole in quicksand. You never get out. So what's the outcome here? Well, the bad news is we only fixed half the bad roads. But the good news is we did something, even if it was just some crack sealing, to almost a quarter of the network. So people saw us out working on a bunch of roads. Our average equivalent annual cost was in that 60 cent per square yard per year range. And most importantly, the program yielded a net gain of 8 lane mile years. So that's not a huge gain, but at least it's a little better than break even. We didn't go backwards. So a good first step that I would do if I were the community is I'd take, let's look at the program we did last year, the program we're looking at this year, and see how many lane mile years of life we put in. You guys have 84 centerline miles times 2 is 168 lane miles. Do we have a program? Can we get up with a program that puts 164 lane mile years or 68 lane mile years of life into the network? Because if you don't, you're going backwards. It's a simple concept.
In terms of the cost, it doesn't make any difference whether this is bonded money or anything else, does it?
No, as far as the outcome, it doesn't matter where the money comes from, but it matters to you in terms of long-term financial planning. I've seen the town of New Windsor over in Orange County by Stewart Airport, if you know that area, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 12, I forget. They went out and borrowed, I think it was about $6 million, and they spent it all over a 2-year period. They did a lot of full-depth reclamation and paving. Now the debt service is so heavy in that community, they don't have enough to maintain it. So that's this financial analysis that I encourage you to look at in their case. And that's a town with a lot of ratables. You know, they got Stewart Airport there and all the business.
They also borrowed 10 years ago and spent it all at the same time. But if we revolve and we keep rolling it, it wouldn't really matter.
It would, but that if you gotta understand the life of these things. Like you don't want to bond this stuff over more than 10 years. My town considered bonding, paving the road into the mall, the Galleria Mall over there, over a 20-year period when I was the Commissioner of Public Works. And I said, this stuff doesn't last 20 years. Don't bond it for longer than it lasts. So they bonded over 10. So that's your financial director, is that finance director? He can certainly do he doesn't know how long stuff lasts. So you got to get a road guy, a pavement guy working side by side with him to make sure that you're looking at this stuff. I think if I were sitting in your shoes as a community, I think you got to look at some bonding. You're at a critical stage right now. If you keep going backwards and backwards and backwards, it's so hard to get out of that hole. You know, because you saw what those bottom of the curve treatments cost. You know, $18 a square yard, $20 a square yard.
But the idea would be to, if you were going to bond, you'd bond to get to a point where you could then have your maintenance budget.
And your debt service plus your maintenance was something that you could afford as a town.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the analysis.
The interesting thing that this is the first time, you know, we had a presentation like this as far as the progressive total treatment of the whole system. They're not doing just the worst. I think it's been a common thing, exactly, to people complaining about, oh, these are the worst roads in town, let's tackle those.
It's human nature, you know, you want to respond to complaints and the worst roads.
Interesting.
It makes sense from a layperson.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
That's the hard sell in this business. You got to be able to explain it.
I think the key is, though, where you went is that you still didn't avoid the worst roads. You just did a portion of them while still maintaining the others. And then next year you're going to get to the other ones, and you're going to catch up. And potentially, depending on how many of those really bad roads are, like you said, in our town, we'd look at potentially some bonding because you got a lot of reclamation work on a certain, but you still have that other work out there, the crack sealing, the chip sealing, the other stuff on the roads that are in good shape. We do have a portion of roads that are in good shape.
And that work's nowhere near as sexy. You don't typically have a ribbon cutting when you go out and do a chip seal project, but it's critical.
Honestly, I don't think the sexy thing's important. I think what's important is the taxpayer seeing us out there doing the work too. You made a comment to that. I mean, it's, you know, there's no need to be cutting ribbons. The thing is that, look, I see them out on the roads. They are doing something. They're sealing, they're fixing, they're, you know, prolonging the life of these roads, and they're, you know, really doing the big job on the roads that need it. I think that's very important.
Another question. You handed out something from the Federal Highway Administration.
Yeah, that's
just for education purposes. What's the relation of the Federal Highway Administration to our local roads? There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about what they do. I mean, they perform studies, they establish standards, they issue memoranda with findings, things like that, right?
Yeah, I think more and more the Federal Highway Administration, there's trickle-down money, and it's never enough at the local community. I mean, if you had as much as New York State DOT spends on their roads, you'd be fat and happy. But the trickle-down doesn't happen in New York State. Local governments don't get much money.
Sure.
So it's incumbent upon you to even be more efficient with your money. But there's trickle-down from the feds to the state and then to the locals. And all along the way, everybody's mandating on new standards, whether it's striping standards or width standards or shoulder. We're not going to give you much money, but we're going to tell you all these things you got.
But the highway administration spends a lot of money on doing things like studies of roads. And it's not just for roads that aren't here, they're for the local roads too, right?
That's right. And what's things encouraging, a few years ago, it used to be that the federal government would give you no money for a road until it fell apart. So it was almost, the incentive for the local government was to let it fall apart and then go to the feds, we need a grant to rebuild the road. Right. The feds have finally, I'd say in the last 10 years, have woken up and said, we need to promote preventive maintenance. And that's, if you go to the federal website right there, there's a huge portion of the FHWA website devoted to pavement, because they said, what were we, idiots? We weren't giving any incentive to do preventive maintenance. They finally woke up.
And they push these things down to AASHTO, the American Association of State Transportation and Highway officials, and to things like the New York State DOT.
They do.
Right? And that's why we get all those standards. They come from the top down. Okay.
Will you be able to share this file with us so we can?
In fact, I have it on a. Here you go.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, okay.
That's easy.
That's one of the quickest shares I've seen.
Well, it's great.
Happy, I'll get it to you
Well,
next
thank
week.
you. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you, Ray. That was great.
kind of boring, dry stuff.
No,
Actually, anything but. Very helpful.
This
Thank
is
you.
exactly, I'd like to thank you, first of all, for waiting, and secondly, for giving us exactly what we asked for.
Okay.
And what the town board, I think, has been hoping to get.
Yes.
Great.
I think
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I think the key is we need to get this kind of information, and we need to work, as Peter suggested, with Cornell and potentially with a consultant. I think we have to look into that, so we could, make the educated decision on what to do. I think we really need that rating on the roads and that strategic plan to say, look, this is the cost for year one, this is gonna be the cost for year two, and this is the way, and then we gotta figure out the numbers.
It's the only way to get the cost-effective number and pull that out, to just try to eyeball it is.
And you said it numerous times, I said.
I'm hoping for the TV, Look at a nasty note from somebody's comments.
And the board could disagree potentially sometimes on the funding aspect of it, but I don't think anybody disagrees that we need to have a real plan. And that's the key. And let's, we're moving in the right direction now.
Yeah, I agree.
Financially, one of the difficult problems is how much you bond and how much you put into initial work via bonding, and how much you maintain, you put into a regular maintenance budget.
That's what those, if you go the consultant route, they do that for municipalities all day, every day.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, to have that and have it explained and really show the numbers that, okay, if you're gonna bond for this portion of it, this makes sense because the rates are so low right now too. The thing is, this is the time to do it. If you're gonna do it now, I mean, if anything, down the road, we'll be thanking our lucky stars. We bonded at this number, and then hopefully we'll have the revenues coming in where the interest is going to outweigh even the interest we're paying on the bonds.
But importantly, by bonding, there's some sweet spot at which the cost per mile hits an optimum versus the other constraints. So that's where a consultant, that's going to come out of the studies, and the consultants or whoever can help us with that. But I think that's a critical number, because that's going to make a dollar difference.
Well, I think the only way you can come up with that number, Dan, and I agree with you, is through doing the work with the consultant and your total road life. Because if you're gonna bond for, it might be much more sensible to bond for it is, in my opinion, much more sensible to bond for the reclamation and the bigger the ones that are gonna go your 15-year life, 10-year life. And then if you're looking at the other stuff, that's just the chip seal, the crack seal and all that, you're not bonding for that, that's your maintenance.
But the important thing is they're gonna be able to tell you, look, if you stretch and bond for an extra $1 million, your cost per mile ultimately, say, goes down or something, you know, so that,
Yeah.
that's
And
what
that's
we
the
need to
key.
know.
Yep.
And I think the difference, you know, it's appetizing to think of the Cornell kid because it sounds cheap, but, you know, the kid's gonna work here, what, 12 weeks in the
That's
summer? I don't know if you do the
penny
numbers.
wise, pound foolish, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
But do you capitalize on using that kid and then bring the consultant in? Or do you bring the consultant, well, what's the answer to that?
I think the quality of the data you're gonna get from a consultant that has professional staff doing that year round, year in and year out, as opposed to the Cornell kid. And they're bright kids, obviously, if you get into Cornell, you're pretty bright to begin with, they're gonna be well trained, but I think the quality of your data would be better from one of these consultants.
So do we bid just
How
for,
much money costs us for the Cornell student over the 12-week salary? And what we gotta put out with the car, and the computer and stuff.
Doesn't,
We have to add
yeah,
that up, see what that-
doesn't sound like it's that
Peter,
big of a
that's what
number.
I think we need to do. We need to have a cost comparison
Right,
between the
what we need
two.
is a consultant, either the address is one of the consultants that he's talking about, that do it for New Canaan and around,
Yeah.
and get their input.
Let's get their,
on it and see what they say.
let's get the bid.
And have them come in and do a presentation too. They gotta sell themselves. Let's get them in and have them come in sooner than later.
We've been saying this for a long time. We want to see projections over the usable life of the road, the cost and everything else, so that we can make appropriate budget decisions. It's not panic in October every year. So,
One thing you want to consider too, when you go into a bonding program, is all your existing roads that are in good condition, that's when you're wanting to implement an actual paving.
aging and maintenance, yeah.
in the town, so you can maintain those,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're going out to
Yeah.
bond and rebuilding other roads.
Yeah.
A lot of towns, they like to forget about that aspect, but that's probably the more important aspect, is attacking your road network at both ends to try to meet that goal.
No, there's where we take a look at our chip money too that's coming in and say, okay, we get 100 plus we put this to the budget and that's gonna be our, you know, our maintenance budget. And then meanwhile, we're bonding to get this other work and get us to snuff. And there's where those numbers come into play, where's the line drawn? What number are we gonna do here?
And once your bond is over with, and you're continually maintaining, but you're taking a small
Yeah,
percentage
have you
of
a
that
clue how
maintenance
to-
money and reconstructing it, as you showed.
Yep.
Ah, that's probably the
Well, we
best
don't need
way.
it now, right?
So
You
I
can turn
think
it on.
probably what I would need from you guys, to get a chance to give us some of the address of the consultants that are known in the
Thank you.
area. You can do that to me,
No,
make a contact, maybe get one of them here at an and go from there with that. That's good.
I'm sorry, I didn't interview a couple of guys with me tonight. Rob Dallinger, lives down here in Fairfield County, represents our company in the area, Matt Peter, and Ford Hire, new with our company. I'm transporting him from New York to Boston tonight. We're on our way.
good luck
Well,
with
have a
that.
safe, yeah, looking at
Good
it.
luck.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Hope you got four-wheel drive.
Very helpful.
Thank you, Peter,
I'm telling you, I
for
drove-
setting this
I
up.
drove up 684.
Yeah, that's breezy.
I'm sure you did too, but I mean, it's a
I
nightmare.
tell you, this is the better.
Hey, I'd like
Peter.
to move,
I wish.
Yeah, no, great.
All right.
I was gonna put Jim on next, because I don't pay him.
Tomorrow, will you give me a copy of the handout?
Just one
tomorrow?
copy,
'Cause he
sorry.
didn't have it.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, all right, yes.
Again, this is an application for just
Good luck
$2,600 to, from
Sorry.
the Watershed Ag Council to help clean up the Oldfield Preserve. And of course, the ongoing work that Joe Tanzi, Dana has been out there most days. Mike, who spoke up earlier, they've put in 118 hours now, chopping away at the invasives, and we've gotten about half of the first field, so almost done. But what this grant will allow us to do is to hire a crew to help us, because at this pace, we're
To be growing behind you.
yeah, it's sort of like the previous presentation. We got to get ahead of the curve. So at the last work session, I went over the management plan, which was a requirement to be able to apply for this small grant. And that plan I wrote was just a compilation of previous plans. It all said the same thing. Basically, get rid of the invasives, and then once you get rid of them, then you can brush hog one field every year, so that every field gets cut every 3, 4, 5
Right.
years, and it will look like a field instead of growing up into a ugly bunch of invasives, which it is. So Peter asked me to walk and get together with Joe Tanzi, which we did a week ago, and decide of all the options that we could apply for, which one, in our opinion, would be the best to apply for. And it was really pretty simple because the other options don't apply. The other options are really about maintaining a forest. So pruning, cutting trees, thinning trees before a harvest, planting new trees. None of those are appropriate. So the one we chose was invasive plant control, which is just what we're doing, but that would be to hire a crew to keep chainsawing out all these giant shrubs. That also pays the highest rate at about $212 an acre. So we walked the 5 different fields to see how best we could use it, and we decided it would be best to apportion it, and you have to specifically say what you're going to use the money for, among 4 different fields. So on one field, we'd use it for 4 acres, another field 2 acres, another 4 acres, to get it to magically add up to 12.5 acres to get the maximum amount we're applying for, 2,600. And Peter, your comment was it would be nice to clean up the field visible from 35. That's one of the areas we decided we would like to have the crew come in and spend the money on. So the management plan has to be signed by Peter, and I don't know if you had more recommendations. I know you talked about deer hunting, which is something that you could propose down the road. I know Frank asked about carbon credits, which got me
thank you for doing that.
studying and finding that that market kind of went out the window when they closed the Chicago Climate Exchange after it was clear there was no cap and trade.
Right.
And I did speak to a consultant who does this stuff, who said the trick is you can't sell credits for something that's already protected. You know, that you can't really get paid for doing something you do anyway. So there have been towns that have, say the Brownell Preserve, which I don't think is permanently protected with an easement, that could potentially be sold. What you have to do is you got to lock it up for 100 years, say we're going to maintain it as a forest, do a survey, do an appraisal, and you have to show that it is in harm's way of being developed. So it wouldn't apply to, as far as I can tell, to Oldfield. But you know, we could talk to the Watershed Ag Council and see if a bunch of towns got together. It wouldn't be a lot of money, but it might be enough to maintain the fields and the
just
forests.
what you're talking about. You're talking about $750 a year, which again is not a huge amount, but it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, as they say.
Like everything, the economies of scale, if you can aggregate it and maybe do it in the watershed with other towns, because that example I think was Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and they
Lockhaven, Pennsylvania.
20,000 acres. They locked up under this program and sold the carbon credits, and they get $100,000 a year.
Yeah, you bet.
But again, that was land that they could have sold off, they could have developed. So, so anyway, that was an interesting.
That's great. I
research
appreciate
project.
you doing it. That's fantastic.
So after the management plan is signed, then you have to sign, if you agree with this, the application for the $2,600, and I've written it for you on how we would like to divide it up. And Joe, any comments?
Joe, are you basically in agreement with this, or was there a food fight before the two of you?
And we'll be out there Thursday, I guess, when the snow melts.
Second thing, I may be wrong, but my memory says that this is part 1 of a part 2 grant.
There, you can go back to the well every 6 months. So this would be for July 2013. So we didn't do the February deadline, so we could get 2,600 for the rest of this year. We could go back, reapply. We've already done the plan. You know, just fill that out with not a lot of paperwork. For February 2014 for another $2,600.
That's kind of
and
what.
And go back again July 2014 again. So the max is 2 times 2,600 or 5,200 per landowner. But it would be nice to be able to. We figured if we had a crew cut this cycle, that again in February, if we could get more. The crew to keep doing what they're doing, that would clean up all the fields. at which point it would just be a case of brush hogging one field once a year, and very, very little maintenance. And Randy has been the one who's been doing all the great brush hogging out there for Park and Rec. So, and
Thank you,
cleaning up the
gentlemen.
trails and all that. So, yeah, thank you, Randy. So, yeah, it would be nice to go back to that well, and you could do it at other preserves in the future.
Great, so we want to authorize.
Questions, gentlemen?
No, it sounds good. I think at this point, we're right where we want to be.
I'd like
Real
to,
good effort, thank you.
you've got to
Thank you, Jim.
propose it.
Make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the management plan and grant application as submitted.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Once again,
Thank
thank
you
you very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Jim,
Thank you.
thank you
Enormous
enormous, and
Joe and
thank
Randy,
you.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, Joe. The whole
And
crew.
Randy, thank you, because you've gone really above and beyond on this whole damn thing. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on camera.
No, you shouldn't. We got a bunch
All
of
right.
other stuff still.
Made up for it
What?
by
We
using
got a bunch
the
of
word
other stuff still,
caravan.
right?
I know, I'm sorry.
Let's get rolling. I guess we do, well,
All right, Dana,
hey, Pete, did Parks and Rec go over this?
Huh?
Did Parks and Rec go over this? I
what?
was talking to Ian about it. The proposals. Do you want a permanent bench?
Oh, we're talking about that now. Yeah, that's,
Or do we want it not to look like a cemetery?
yeah, that's not going to be. That's all,
Yeah, it does look a little bit like that.
I don't think so.
Oh, you didn't think so?
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
anyway,
let's go.
I'm going to stay out of this one.
Well,
Dana.
Dana
we'll
Makelum,
sort that out right
Superintendent
now.
of Parks and Recreation. Drew Hoffman, representative of the Lewisboro Soccer Club. Drew
Hi,
came.
Drew.
Hi.
Drew came to visit you guys in the end of September with a proposal for some upgrades for a grant that they received through the Forever Gregory, and I don't know how far I'm going to make it, and Drew's going to come in if I lose my voice. The Gregory and Molly Fund that they got. They did what you asked. They went through PrAC, and we've gone through ACARC, and have now come up with 2 player benches on the far side of Field 6. Both will have plaques on it, and then a spectator bench. It's in your packet. The bench require specs for both benches, the player benches and the spectator benches, and then 2 plaques on the dedication rock that's already existing out on Field 6, one retiring Gregory's soccer number, and the other one acknowledging the donation and the grant through the Forever Gregory and Molly Fund. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, no.
We're
What's
good
on the
so
rock
far?
now?
That's fine.
We're good.
Yeah.
What's on the rock, the dedication rock? What's on it now?
I'm not
What's
sure
on it
what's
now?
right
It's
It's one to the Lewisboro Soccer Club
with the year that they dedicated it, and
for the field.
and that's on the front of it, correct? So they're just going to add. Do you know which side? Facing out.
It'll be on the same side as the current dedication that's on there.
So the
And then,
permanent,
and then the bench that Dana's referring to, the 5-foot bench, that'll sit behind the dedication stone, but face the
Oriented
field.
towards the field, yeah.
That was actually a PrAC recommendation
Yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
This is a
as you
shorter
know,
bench.
you have to stand there, so that
Right.
might be a nice place to
Right.
congregate.
yeah, I agree. But you're talking on the north side of the field, we're talking about permanent benches there embedded in a cement foundation? Is that what you're talking about? Is that what we want? I mean, do we want that? Because, and I don't ask you for a silly reason. I mean, for alternate use of the field, if we need to move that at all?
This is going to be. We thought temporary benches, but because of the donation, because of the plaques that are going to be in it, it's going to be in the buffer. That's. I mean, you could see where the field ends,
yeah.
and before the rock wall, it will be in there. We're going to clear it.
In terms of maintaining it, though, is that going to present a problem?
Yeah,
You think it is?
Randy's not a big fan
I
of
thought
it.
it might. I mean, that was part of my issue before. I mean, what are you going to have to do in terms of maintaining the area if it's a permanent as opposed to a temporary bench?
You know, I think it's going to be crushed stone and stone dust on top. There's no weed seed in that, so it'll be a while before anything really happens.
Okay.
It's kind of like dugout
Put
benches.
fabric down too, you know, so there'll be nothing put up through.
We're afraid if they're temporary that they're going to get moved, they're going to get
Yeah.
destroyed. and they're gonna get banged up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I'm concerned about the ability to do maintenance there and the ability to do anything else with the field if we want to.
Slap there instead.
All right. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, I just had some questions.
No, I understand.
Randy, the way it's proposed now, how long will it last before it needs maintenance?
I can't hear very
The way it's proposed now, how long will it
Can't just
last
stay there.
before it
Oh, it'll
needs
last a long
maintenance?
time, but eventually it's gonna end up a weed seed, and it just the wind blows the weed seed, and then, you know, the grass starts to grow and the weeds and this and that, and then,
Right, you can't do it
You
with a
know,
machine, you're gonna have to get down and do it.
yeah.
Right.
If it made cement, try to grow in on it, but it won't never grow over it.
It's going to look a lot better with stone, with crushed stone.
Actually, you wouldn't even see the cement, because it's gonna be, it would be flush with the ground anyway.
It would?
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, somebody trips on it trying to get to the bench.
You have to go back to Prac for that?
No,
Or Acorn.
Or
what?
If
we-
you went to
Could
a
change the-
cement slab?
Yeah, correct. We've gotten everybody's approval,
Yeah.
except for yours.
You can mount it any way you want. I mean, you
No,
don't
but
need
if we
that.
went and did a slab, we'd have to
Yeah,
go back to
might
ACARC
look different.
and
Depends on-
PRAC,
Why?
Right.
because that wasn't part of our
It's
original application.
ground level. It's ground level. It's a permanent structure. Why would you have to go back for that? It has no bearing on what the project would look like. I don't see why
Because
that
it's
would
not
have to.
existing right now.
You're currently gonna use a
You've
cement
already
foundation
applied
and
that
crushed
you're
stone.
putting it in the ground, that it's permanent. Am I correct?
Yes, but now you're gonna make a concrete slab to sit the bench on. That's what the proposal is.
What?
No.
No, the concrete slab would be what it's mounted on. Instead of putting 3 footings, 4 concrete footings, you're deciding to just make a rectangle of
Well, now are we
concrete.
getting building, I don't know, because I always learn the hard way of these things, as we all know this, but are we going towards building department approval too?
No, why would it? Randy,
I don't think we have to do
wouldn't
that.
be anything. It'd be just like putting a new bench
Well,
in
you
the
guys
dugout.
are the owners of the property, so you tell me what you want to do, and we'll
Just
do
saying,
it.
But the cost
You can
is
have
the
these slabs
aspect.
later too, you know, you don't have to do it now. Still be a base there, we put the slab on top, topsoil around at another time, that could be done also.
Drew, aesthetically, do you have any strong feelings one way or the other?
The benefit to the slab is, as you know, that with the high grass there are ticks there. The kids tend to sit in there, especially on a very hot day.
Yeah.
They want to stay in the shade. So in my view, there is a benefit to the slab because that'll make it easier for Randy. It'll be much cleaner there. It does make sense to me.
And Peter, you don't think we need to go through?
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. There's no, if you were going to change the height of the bench, the color of the bench, but you're not
Anthony,
doing
what do
that.
you
It's
think?
just the way you're mounting it to the ground. Where would you? No, but do you see another board needing to? No.
It shouldn't be a problem at
No,
all.
not at all.
Let's do the slab.
It's
Can
not
we do a
structure
slab? Can you?
Anyway,
Well, the
No.
question is the money.
That's what I'm saying. Can you?
Yeah, that's one of the questions.
That's to me the key. Does it cost that much more to do a
not that I
slab?
need anything more to do.
What?
What's the cost differential between the slab and the crushed stone? Is there any?
It's definitely, you know, concrete's $125 a yard,
And you gotta put the,
so
okay, forms around, somebody's gotta do it.
minimum of $500 for a truck to come, so we'd order the appropriate amount and make the slabs according to how much I get on that truck.
Could
So if you
I,
buy a yard or 5, you pay for 5.
Yeah.
It's really not that bad, you know?
Right.
It don't need as much preparation because it's not a structure
Yeah,
once it
pour it
goes
right,
in.
right.
Level the area, maybe a little bit of crushed stone and pour that slab, put the topsoil around it, done.
Yeah, you'd never know the difference. It's up to you. I mean, honestly.
could I
It's your
ask
property, you
for,
tell
No,
us.
the only concern is the difference in price. You're gonna
Would
cost
I-
more money than they're willing to give us, that's what we're asking.
Well, I mean, the fund gave us $4,000, so it depends, you know, how expensive this ends up being, but the club does have money, so they can add to it to
Right.
cover the
Was
full
there a
cost.
budget for this project? I mean, this one we could.
We were
How
trying to
much-
live within the 4,000, but as a club, I'm a board member of the club.
Right, right.
We're willing to go above the
Yeah, I
4 to make
gotcha.
this
Right.
look
Are the
good.
benches above 4,000 already, or?
No, the total cost of the bench, I think their price is on there, would be 2,000 max.
Okay.
And then there's the 5-foot viewing bench, that's about
Yeah.
500, so
So
we're
you're
about
at 2,500
2,500 plus the labor.
Oh, so I don't, yeah, so.
Could I,
you're well within
could I
budget right
propose a motion
That's the
that
question.
we
When you're gonna buy
approve
less siding board, that's
this?
$40 a yard, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the
This-
installation of the benches as proposed by the Lewisboro Soccer Club and Parks and Rec with the generous donation from the Forever Molly and Gregory Fund. And
And you're going to the concrete?
and I would say to install in a permanent solution that works within the budget and what Parks and Rec deems most appropriate for that location.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, in other words, you're
Yeah,
giving
that'd be great.
description. I think I'd like to second
I
that.
seconded it already.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
I didn't hear you.
I do it quick.
Discussion?
Drew would like to invite you all to opening day for the soccer club when they donate.
April 21st.
like to
Hopefully April 21st, yes.
Okay.
First home game.
Thank you.
All in
Nice job,
favor?
Drew.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
Thank
job.
Randy.
Thank you.
Nice job, Randy. Thank you.
Get home safe now, Drew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay, take care.
Oh,
Thanks.
thanks.
I'd like to ask the board's approval to sending Peter Barrett to an annual educational conference put on by the Hudson Valley Code Enforcement officials for a cost of $300, which is already in the budget.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to, all right. Board, we had a problem, which you are maybe aware of. The problem was that we had a four-wheel drive Chevy Blazer in the preserve, in the Leon Levy Preserve, which drove pretty well straight at one of our volunteers. There was some altercation between them.
Between the volunteer and the driver of the Chevy?
Yes.
Driving to the levee?
What?
Nothing.
One of the problems that emerged in discussing this with Frank Secret and with Anthony after the fact was that, believe it or not, although we prohibited ATVs and motorcycles,
We didn't prohibit
We didn't
cars?
prevent
no,
1957
we did
Chevys.
nothing to prohibit on-road,
Even though there are no roads?
yes,
Ben Hur can't come on with his chariot? I mean,
road vehicles. So, I would like to add
I should spend the night in jail. I'm kidding.
any motorized vehicle to the law, to Chapter 210 of the town law, which would simply take the law we passed last year and extend it to all motorized
So that
vehicles.
With the
public
exception of
hearing,
emergency rescue vehicles, et cetera.
And I would like
Right,
to,
with the exception of emergency vehicles, rescue vehicles.
oh, that's all in
First
here
responders,
already.
yeah.
Sorry, that's already in here.
So when do we get the public hearing?
I would like to set the public hearing for April 8th.
All right.
Second?
Second, yeah.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Peter, would you like to handle the Westchester County Assistance on Proper Drug Disposal?
Sure. This is becoming a very hot topic. There's a advocacy group that started out on Long Island, speaking to, I believe it was Nassau County, or was it Suffolk County, making a law so that hospitals and nursing homes are educated not to flush medications, prescription medications and narcotics. Right now, there is no hammer that's there or legislation, even at that stage, that forces hospitals and nursing homes to not to flush narcotics. Actually, in some cases, they have no other means to get rid of narcotics other than to flush them, unless they go through, police departments or the DEA or things like that to be able to get rid of these drugs. So this is an important issue on many levels. And what we found when we started doing our research in Westchester County is that many of the hospitals and nursing homes have ways to get rid of the prescription drugs. When they're expired, it's an economical incentive, whether they bring it back to the manufacturer, send it back to the manufacturer themselves, or they have a middleman that's able to get all of their unused prescriptions and get them back. We're lucky enough in the watershed, there are a few different programs out there that will pick up through the New York State Health Department and the DEA. They call it the sleigh run or the snow shed run, believe it or not, and they pick up the narcotics, and they'll dispose of properly the narcotics by incineration and things like that, not by flushing. Well, one of the things that after we did this research, one of the big issues are homeowners, residents. They make up a large population, if not the larger population, of drugs that are just sitting in people's medicine chests. And when they just sit there in the medicine chest, there are a couple of things. One, other people could potentially have access to it, i.e. children and teenagers that are now looking at these different drugs, especially oxycodone and things like that, to be able to, buy from other kids that steal them from medicine cabinets and get them out there. So that's a big health issue right there, overdosing and improper use of the medication. The second thing is, a lot of people, when they clean out their medicine chest, what do? Dump it down the toilet and flush it into the watershed. So one of the things that we like to get out there and have people understand is that we do have a program through our Department of Environmental Facilities where people can drop off medications. Well, that becomes a little difficult because they have to go to that location and do it. So we currently have 11 police departments, and that number is climbing because of this incentive, that are on board, which will get a lockbox that will be stored at the police department where people can just go to their local police department, drop off their unused or expired prescription medications, whatever they might have. The police lock it up, and then on a basis as that box get filled, our police department will actually bring the box down for proper disposal and incineration of those drugs. So this is something what we'd like to get on board with. It costs us nothing other than a little bit of Frank Secret's time to bring that box down there for proper disposal on a routine basis as it gets filled up. We can do some promotion. The county will help with promotion of that. Hey, Lewisboro's on board now, and we on our website, Facebook, our Parks Department, Police Department, we could put a little campaign on Channel 20 and get that out there to be able to do it. So it really, serves a great purpose, and a purpose of convenience to our residents, a purpose of public health safety to our teenagers and youth, a safety to our seniors, which are hard to get out and be able to dispose of this medication, and also the environment in our watershed to have less drugs go down into the watershed and down the toilet. And I speak kind of well on it because I had to present this to the advocacy group and a special group of the Board of Legislators just last week.
Why do you think I asked
I
you
know.
to handle this?
So, and we're working, actually looking at the legislation and looking at some other things out there too at a county level. But this is a good step, and education is key, and preventive health is key, as I mentioned earlier.
I thoroughly endorse this because as somebody who fairly frequently has procedures done on him, they always prescribe a greater quantity, a painkiller of high intensity painkiller than I use. And, it's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
All right.
So what do we have to do?
I would like to, now, I should tell you that Frank Secret is enthusiastic about this program.
Good. We're going to need his help.
And our new police station is perfectly positioned to take advantage of it. And
well, I make a motion to authorize the supervisor and the chief of police to enroll enroll with Westchester County and the Department of Environmental Facilities in their proper drug disposal program, and be able to participate to the fullest extent.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to, at our last meeting, we discussed enacting and had a public hearing on a law which would increase the notification necessary when you were going in front of the planning board or wetlands, for a wetlands issue. At that time, we agreed that it was a good idea, but asked that I procure a neg deck or a negative declaration I have now procured that.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta make a and can I do the seeker
No,
at the same
do-
time?
no, do this
No. All right, I propose that we adopt the negative declaration as proposed by wetlands consultant Jan.
Dated March 18, 2013.
Yeah.
Second, as amended.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would like the town board's permission to sign the seeker for this.
We still didn't have the public hearing on this yet.
Yes, we have.
We had
We
the
did,
public
we
hearing?
did.
Oh,
We
yeah.
did.
Oh,
This was the
okay.
only standing issue.
Yeah, I move to authorize the supervisor to
Was I there?
sign the
Yes.
seeker
No, you weren't
declaration
here.
Oh, I wasn't here for it. Oh.
Oh, sorry.
for the amendment
So I can
to
vote on
Chapter
these, though, right?
195,
This doesn't
Chapter 217, Wetlands and
I can
Water
vote on
Course,
these.
pending public hearing notification, dated March 12, 2013.
Second.
I would like, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No, I don't recall it.
I would like to move that we adopt the local law which shall be known as 2013 Amendment of Section 195/15G of Chapter 195 Subdivision of Land. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I'm only going to say that I'm going to recuse myself.
Yeah,
because I
Fine.
missed the public
You're
hearing.
welcome.
Okay, that's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Believe it. Oh,
Yeah, do that the next one, chapter 217.
Yeah, it is.
what? Haven't we done? What haven't I done?
Chapter 217.
We've done this earlier on this
it's not
evening.
right here.
Oh,
That right there. It's part of what you just did, two separate local laws, two separate sections of the code.
okay, I am sorry.
I think you said 217.6, I think.
Yeah.
I think we got to adopt
He said
Chapter 1.
195.
You did say 195? Okay.
I've got, I move that we adopt the amendment to Chapter 217-6F6 Wetlands.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Abstain.
Anthony. Lise, I'm sorry, I've been cruel to you. Granted, you've got a commute.
It's okay, I still have to drive to the airport with my husband, so.
Um,
First of all, this is for you, the work I promised you for.
Oh, thanks, that's,
Okay.
this is about,
Is the plane coming in? You got to go to the airport, is actually plane landing?
I hope so, he said it's still on time.
I would
thought
call.
texted him. He's coming out of Washington right now.
Into Westchester?
Yeah.
I would call.
Lise, I assume you're here in order to inform the board of a change in the valuation of the town, right?
Yeah, gosh.
Or the assessment, right?
No, I'm here to ask for your permission, you met with Don
Oh,
Orban.
I am sorry.
So I can have something in my office.
Okay.
This is executive session stuff?
Hiring
decisions, executive session.
All right, I'd better wait till executive session. Sorry, I thought you would hear on something.
We could have you come into exec, because we didn't, this is the first time
First I've heard
really
of
Yes.
hearing about it, so.
In that case, I'd like to move to the audit and ask if people have any questions on it.
I make a motion to approve the audit as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dan's got a question.
Dan?
No question.
Oh.
I do want to, before you jump into executive session though, the e-waste thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was great.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, let's
sorry.
bang that right out.
That's
It's all
an add-on, and I'm sorry.
No problem. Are we ready for it?
Yes.
All right.
Go.
So some of you saw it, and it's pretty straightforward. As I say, thanks to Janet nudging me, and finally me getting down to work on it. But the nice thing is, it's a free program. It's something we really, have wanted to do for some time, to add to the recycling center. These are materials that really ask for responsible disposal, because we've got heavy metals in them, we've got all this stuff. People have this stuff waiting on their shelves ready to go.
Big monitors.
Yeah, all this, so they'll take all this stuff, they have this, and even some additional, small electronics, and we have a whole list of stuff here, fax machines and video games and things like that. So the vendor, basically, he'll bring in a container, sit it down, and then they have specialty pallets, gaylords that they put inside, so the container is the weatherization for that. And I looked over the site, it's a 20-foot container. It looks like it can sit basically next to where our current operation is going, and without disrupting anything, and being very accessible. In order to go forth with it, we just fill out some information on a form they have, which they will submit for us to the DEC. They did say that they would provide a certificate of insurance for us, so we can get that. And I sent out Bedford's using the same firm. I sent a note to them asking if they had any issues, which we can wait until we get something back, but I haven't heard that they.
Do we need to just make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the paperwork with the Waste Alliance? Would that be what we would say?
Or I think it's regional
computer recycling and recovery, and
contingent
just
on getting the
council review with certificate of insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Second.
that's the motion.
That's your motion, second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Dan.
That's a
Good.
win-win,
Yeah,
Dan.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Nice job, Dan.
Nice,
Yeah, good
nice
to get
program.
that.
Thank you for staying on there, kids.
And thank Janet and Mary.
Yep, good.
I have here a proposal by Kellard Sessions to provide engineering work for work on Mead Street to improve the drainage there. This is part of this is part of the 312,500 that we have bonded.
You should have brought this up earlier.
Yeah, no
When
kidding.
they were all here.
that we have already bonded for, and this is the beginning, and we are now facing deadlines, bluntly, on getting this work done. We had a long meeting with the county. We have got approval from this project for the DEP. That's a city, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We've got approval from the city. We've got approval from the county, and
Approval for the whole slate of the second round of projects.
well, yes, but in particular for this one.
Okay.
Because this one is partially with our money and partially with
Oh,
the
it's
county's
kinda an
money.
overlap.
It's an overlap.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
So it's
So
Hope the
we,
paint stick better on Mead Street. maybe?
I'll ask Joe. I'd like the board's authorization to sign this. Sorry, you
Yep.
go. I need the board's
Where's the cover
authorization to sign.
I make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the stormwater quality practices on Mead Street proposal
By Kellard Sessions.
Kellard and Sessions, as in conjunction with the East of Hudson 312 grant provisions and reviewed by council.
Second.
So our portion is already budgeted and projected for the Kellard and Sessions part, right?
Say that again.
The Kellard and Sessions section of the payment has already been budgeted?
Yes,
That's all I want to make.
yeah. All of this.
Don't want to authorize anything that isn't pre-budgeted. so.
All of this is coming out of either the county grant
Right.
or the 312,500 that you bonded for some time back.
Yep. All in favor.
What?
All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. You were.
Just want to make sure.
I was beginning to go slowly. I can't think what.
Yes.
Polling of the. Polling of the board. Dan. I don't know why I went to you first, but I thought I would.
Yeah, no, we did all my stuff tonight, so,
Yeah.
that was good, thank you, and a lot of positive progress in various projects, and for the Sustainability Committee, a lot of activity, We have the Arbor Day thing coming up that Lisa presented last time, so very active and juiced up now, so it's good.
Thank you. Good night. I just want to, once again commend the supervisor and Peter Rippinger for having the pavement presentation. I think that was very helpful. I think we're moving in the right direction with that. I think that was one of the better presentations, if not the best one I've seen, or the only one I've seen regarding paving.
We needed
yeah, that's something we
great.
really needed. So let's just keep up on that and not let that go to waste and get some discussion with a consultant. I think that's good. Thank you. Well, snowing out, let's get moving.
John?
Very informative meeting tonight. I was happy to see the outpouring of energy relative to, a safety program that we're discussing, and I'm glad people came out. And also to echo what Peter DeLucia just said, or I think I heard him say, and namely, I'm glad we're getting the discussion going on the roads. And I think the most compelling piece that came out of that presentation was the critical importance of having a long-term plan in place, not being short-sighted both fiscally and in terms of from a realistic perspective. So very informative. Thank you for bringing that person up.
Gosh, I love that hat.
It's a cool hat.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Frank.
Nothing for the board.
Two things. We completed an auction of a batch of highway stuff and the bus, and the bus is now on its way to Alaska.
It's probably warmer than it is here right now.
Yeah, going for a salmon run.
I would like to remind people that we have a meeting at 7 o'clock right here on Thursday with NICEAG, telling us about their, aren't being prepared to answer questions about their tree cutting program.
Is Adam going to be here? Adam up?
Well, yeah, if you want him to be, I'll ask him to be.
He has some opinions on it. I think they're valuable.
Okay. I am intending this mainly, though, for residents to understand how they can question the NICEAG decision.
That's why I think it's important for Adam to be here.
And where they can't question it.
Yeah, okay.
Into executive session? So
Yep.
Lisa can pick her husband up at the airport?
All right. I move that we go into an executive session in order to discuss personnel issues.
Second.
And appointments. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. I am sorry, Lisa.